Chapter 1288. Death. Heavenly Tao had never imagined that the God Realm's clan elder would have reached such a state of idiocy. It wasn't easy for him to bring people back to the God Realm. He had come to accept the influence of a higher level of cultivation culture, but in the end, he was directly invaded by the sand sculpture culture. However, the battle didn't seem to be over yet. Death. Heavenly Tao had thought that if the 7 Tao Masters joined forces, they would at least be evenly matched with the Golden Lamp. In the end, it turned out to be a one-sided hammer blow. The monk had defeated 7 great Tao Venerables with one palm. If news of this were to spread, the 7 families of the God Realm would lose all their faces. However, the monk didn't go all out. He still held back. Otherwise, 7 people. They all had to die. Apart from Tao ancestor Wang, whose whereabouts were unknown, the only person in the world who could withstand the power of his palm was Ling Jinren. And after a clear understanding of Wang Ling's strength, even if the monk wanted to fight, he would have to weigh the power of the backlash. It was easy for him to strike with his palm, but the damage from the backlash could paralyze half of his body. At this moment, the 7 Tao Masters got up from the ground and wiped the blood from the corners of their mouths. The monk's palm strike actually made them vomit blood. This was something they had never expected. It was the first time for everyone present to exchange blows with a Buddhist sage. The monk's strength had far exceeded their imagination. "Monk, have you thought about the consequences?" Zhou Xintian's body was trembling. He was angry, but more than that, he was trembling. His front teeth were broken when he hit the ground, and his mouth was full of blood. Apart from that, his internal injuries were also very serious. He didn't know how long it would take for him to recover. Don't be fooled by the fact that he could still speak. Before long, he would completely lose his voice. In the end, his throat still couldn't withstand the pressure of 70 breaths per second. This penniless monk's actions are also out of consideration for the divine realm. Tyrant glanced at the Tao Venerables in front of him. "Elders, are you convinced? If not, I have other means." He wasn't joking. Based on his experience of 3,910 reincarnations, Tyrant had summed up tens of thousands of ways to torture the Tao Master in front of him to a critical condition without being killed instantly. Of course, if he was stubborn. Forcibly transcending was not impossible. Things had come to this. Zhou Xintian was very clear. He definitely wouldn't be able to beat him. Unless the Patriarch made a move, there might be a glimmer of hope. The patriarchs of the 10 great clans in the God domain were all Tao gods. But how easy would it be to invite a Tao god to help? Currently, almost all of the patriarchs were in a state of closed-door cultivation, and it was impossible for them to easily come out and take action. Zhou Xintian stared at the monk and felt like he was suffering in silence. If they couldn't stop this, the Earth's upgrade was already a done deal. The monk relied on his strength to do whatever he wanted, leaving them helpless. When did such a terrifying figure appear on Earth? Monk. If it wasn't for the fact that the Patriarch is in seclusion, do you think you could have gotten away with it? Zhou Xintian looked at the golden lamp. "I admit that I'm no match for you. If you have what it takes, let's spar." "Sparring?" The monk smiled. "I'll keep you company." At this time, the 7 Tao Masters stepped forward. They were faced with a difficult problem. Take Earth's upgrade for example. A monk. Let me ask you, the God's domain is a high-level cultivation path. How did these miscellaneous cultivators on Earth walk it? In my opinion, there is no high or low cultivation path. There is no path to cultivation, but with people, there will be a path. Monk, you are a monk. Why do you want to fight for the Earth's cultivators? Tao Master is asking me a question. Are you arguing with me? The God's domain has been arrogant for a long time, and it shouldn't continue to fall. For the Tao Master to ask such a question, I can only lament its misfortune and be angry at its failure to fight. The Tao Masters have already asked me 2 questions. Can I ask you one? Let's hear it. A function y equals f, x, defined on R, if it satisfies f, x1, f, x2, slash x1, x2 is 0 for any unequal real numbers x1 and x2, and x and y satisfy the inequality f, x. 2x, plus f, 2y, y. Less than or equal to 0. If 0 is true, then when 1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 4, the range of values for y slash x is? Is it too difficult? The monk frowned. Do you know power functions? What about trigonometric and inverse trigonometric functions? You know a function of 1 degree, right? The 7 Tao Masters shook their heads, dumbfounded. In the gods' domain, they actually didn't pay much attention to math problems. The monk sighed helplessly. If you don't know anything, how can you be a Tao Master? The corner of Zhou Xintian's mouth twitched. Monk, we are reincarnating Tao. What kind of bullshit questions are you asking? Isn't the great Tao of mathematics a part of Tao? The monk smiled. He would never forget the scene of him vomiting blood after being electrocuted by the overwhelming number of functions when he had held Wang Ling's memory brick. The monk didn't want to experience this kind of pain a second time, and he decided to generously share this more painful experience. The pain of such a devilish thing alone was nothing compared to the pain of all. Monk, you are twisting words and forcing logic. A monk doesn't lie. These functions contain profound knowledge. If you can't even comprehend them, you won't be able to do anything. If you can't comprehend them, I can say with certainty that your realm will stop here and never improve. At that moment, the monk shook his head. He condensed the painful memory fragment from when he had touched the memory brick into a ball of spirit power in his palm. He then stared at the Tao Masters in front of him. If you don't believe me, you can take a look at this poor monk's memory. The 7 Tao Masters were skeptical and looked at each other for a while. In the end, it was Elder Zhou Xintian who stood up. It's just a math problem, I don't believe it's so scary. Then, Zhou Xintian directly stretched out his hand. The moment his fingertip touched the ball of spirit power, he instantly felt like he had been electrocuted. Not good. Elder Zhou hurriedly wanted to let go. But it was already too late. The terrible memory poured into his spiritual space, and in that instant, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. His whole body twitched wildly from the electricity. By the time the other Tao Masters came back to their senses, Elder Zhou was already lying on the ground with his butt in the air. He stared at Elder Zhou, who had been charred black by the power of knowledge. The monk couldn't help sighing sympathetically. He swept his gaze over the people in front of him. And Lord Tao Master, do you want to try? Forget it, the remaining 6 Tao Masters took a step back. Let's go back. At that moment, Death Heavenly Tao, who had witnessed the Tao discussion with Awed Zhua and Lotus Sun outside the temple, felt very helpless. They couldn't beat him, and had suffered because of their lack of culture. The domain of the gods had indeed declined. In the golden Buddha lotus, the girl was also greatly disappointed. That's it. Death Heavenly Tao smiled bitterly. Whether it's on earth or in the domain of the gods, studying hard is never wrong. Chapter 1289. The martial battle and the civil battle ended with the 7 great Tao Masters crushing defeat. They could slowly cultivate if they couldn't win, but as a big shot in the divine territory, it was a bit unreasonable for them to suffer a loss because they were uncultured. However, the monk knew very well that this matter wasn't over yet. The 7 great Tao Masters were still struggling. Because they still had one last hope. That was to invite the clan masters of the 7 great clans. The Wang family, Gu family, and Lu family, these 3 leaders definitely couldn't be counted on. However, Zhou Xintian felt that there was still room to turn the situation around as long as one of the remaining 7 families could come forward. So while the civil battle was going on, The 7 great Tao masters were secretly communicating with the leaders who were in seclusion. They hoped that one of them could act on their behalf and help them. There was no need to kill the monk, as long as they could make the monk retreat in the face of difficulties and protect the interests of the divine territory. And in the face of such a small trick, the monk still had a smile on his face. His heart was as clear as a mirror. Whether it was a civil battle or a martial battle, that was all Zhou Zhintian's trick to stall for time. Monk, this is the last wave. If you can withstand the Tao God's will, we won't interfere in the matter of upgrading the earth. Zhou Zhintian flung his sleeves and laughed wildly as he spoke. Just a second before the Zhou family's grand elder spoke, the Zhou family's leader had already communicated with him. They retreated to the side of the profound Tao palace, intending to watch the show. No matter how strong this monk was, could he be stronger than a Tao god? They didn't believe it. In this world, other than Tao ancestor Wang, the Tao God realm could be said to be the God realm that was second only to one and above all. When a Tao God descends, no one can compare. Hey, why do you want to die for no reason? At this moment, Miss Ah Wan, who was watching from the crowd, sighed. Zhou Zhintian, who retreated to the side, was in a good mood. Lord Realm King, why don't you persuade the master to leave quickly? The Tao gods will hasn't descended yet, there's actually still room for redemption. If he gets injured here and loses his cultivation, we won't care. This is indeed a suicidal behavior. Hearing this, Miss Ah Wan rolled her eyes at Zhou Zhintian and silently shook her head. She said suicidal, but she didn't mean the monk. People without self-awareness were indeed terrifying. In the shattered profound doctrine grand hall, Tyrant raised his head and looked at the sky at a 45 degrees angle. He could see that the originally cloudless skies of the God domain were suddenly shrouded by countless white clouds. These white clouds gradually separated into a blood-red color and turned into blood vessels before finally condensing into the shape of a brain. The Tao God's brain has appeared, and its will is about to come and claim it. The 7 great Tao venerables looked up at the sky. Currently, the sky above the entire God's domain was dyed with a gloomy blood-red color, giving off an incomparably dense pressure. The powerful mental pressure was only at the initial stage, but it had already formed a blood-stained sky and a trembling earth. Tao God will. Oh no, I'm too late. Death Heavenly Tao frowned. This pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. Helpless, he could only open his inner world and take in Jua, who had touched the Buddha Golden Lotus, as well as Lotus Sun to protect them. What's wrong, Senior? Jua didn't understand what on earth was going on. I didn't expect the Tao sovereign to summon the Tao God's will. And it must be the Zhou clan's patriarch. Death Heaven frowned. When the Tao God will descended, the entire space of the God domain would be sealed, making it impossible to leave or enter. He had wanted to leave with Jua and Lotus Sun, but he was still too late. There was no doubt that the Tao God's power was strong. None of the 6 main heavenly Tao was a match for the Tao God. One could only imagine how strong it was. We have to get far away. Death Heavenly Tao subconsciously distanced itself from the profound path hall when it sensed this extraordinary mental pressure. This Tao God will was coming from Monk Jin Dang in the center of the profound path hole. The main pressure was concentrated there, and the surrounding area was only affected by the Tao God will's radiation. Thus, the further away they were, the less pressure there was. Ahahaha. Monk. Come and transcend. Aren't you very capable? If you're capable, then transcend this Tao God will. Zhou Zhintian, the Zhou clan's grand elder, couldn't stop laughing. He had tolerated the monk for a long time. Now that the Tao God will was about to arrive, he could already imagine the scene of the monk getting beaten up. In the profound path hall, the monk silently turned the prayer beads in his hand. He stared at the sky that was dyed red with blood. The brain of the Tao God that was formed from the clouds was becoming clearer and clearer in his line of sight, almost condensing into a solid substance. This enormous brain of the Tao God seemed to fill the entire sky of the divine realm. Countless spiritual energy was absorbed by it, and then it bloomed from within, emitting an immortal sound that shook one's heart. This was the sound of the heavens breathing. And the will of the Tao God was the will of the heavens. It is indeed a powerful force. The monk looked at this scene, his heart as calm as still water. Compared to the 7 great Tao sovereigns, this kind of power was barely enough. Monk, are you still not going to make a move? Are you so scared that you don't dare to move? Zhou Xintian reprimanded. The formation of this Tao God will require a certain amount of time. If it was finally formed, its power would be at its strongest. The best way to stop the will of the Tao God was to make a move before it was completely formed and destroy the brain of the Tao God in the sky. However, it was not an easy task to defeat the brain of the Tao God. The monk did not make a move, which confused Zhou Xintian. He felt that the monk was most likely scared silly. Otherwise, how could he miss such a good opportunity? In the center of the profound Tao hall, the monk silently chanted Buddhist scriptures. He waited for about 3 minutes. Then, he suddenly raised his head. Facing the brain of the Tao God in the sky, he stretched out his hand. The moment the monk stretched out his hand, it grew bigger and bigger. His palm was filled with spiritual energy, and he fiercely slapped the brain of the Tao God. This hand stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and it seemed to be able to cover the entire world. Is this monk crazy? No. He did it on purpose. This monk is not afraid of the Tao God at all. Oh my God! Who is this monk? At this moment, the 7 great Tao sovereigns finally understood why the monk did not make a move. He was not scared out of his wits. Instead, he was waiting on purpose. Until the Tao God will finally formed, and when the spiritual pressure was at its peak, he made his move. To fight against the will of the Tao God. The monk's ability to resist the will of the Tao God with one hand shocked everyone present. The brain of the Tao God sensed the disobedience in front of it and instantly released a powerful divine lightning. Rumble. In an instant, the sky surged like a silver snake, as if it wanted to shatter the monk's hand that was wrapped around the brain of the Tao God. It's useless. The monk shook his head. When the divine lightning struck his palm, it felt like it was tickling him. He didn't take a mere Tao God's will seriously at all. He knew. When Tao ancestor Wang became a Tao God, he was by his side. That scene of the tribulation, heaven and earth were disobedient, space disintegrated, and everything was distorted by a powerful force, like a fried dough twist, like the beginning of the universe. The monk had witnessed such a grand scene with his own eyes. He really did not care about the will of the Tao God. Disperse. In the next moment, the monk gradually closed his 5 fingers. As long as he crushed the brain of the Tao God, everything would be resolved. However, at this moment, suddenly, another brain of the Tao God appeared in the sky. It stood side by side with the brain that the monk was about to grab. The head of the Leaf family also made a move. At this moment, a Tao sovereign cried out. The head of the Leaf family's Tao God hadn't fully formed yet. But it was rare to see 2 brains of the Tao God side by side against a common enemy. All the cultivators in the domain of the gods were dumbfounded. Who on earth was it? To attract the attention of 2 Tao gods. To have 2 Tao gods join forces to resist it. In an instant, the mental pressure in the world increased. But the monk remained calm in the face of this scene. 2 brains of the Tao God. The monk raised his eyebrows. After confirming that the Gu, Wang, and Lu families wouldn't make a move, that was to say, the remaining 7 Tao gods could join the battle at any time. The monk could still control the current situation. But if all 7 Tao gods joined in, he might not be able to hold on. After all, the monk had already lost 3,000 lifetimes of cultivation in his previous battle with Wang Ling. With his remaining cultivation of 910 lifetimes, fighting 3 was already his limit. If there were more, he would need Ling Jinren's help. But the monk didn't panic. Because he had already sensed that the strongest man on earth was already paying attention to this place. He was watching the screen, ready to make a move if necessary. This poor monk will do his best to deal with this myself, the monk sighed in his heart and opened his palm a little wider. At the same time, he covered the 2 brains of the Tao god. Then, like those old men in the park who played with walnuts, he turned them around. He pinched the 2 brains of the Tao god in his palm and spun them around. The 2 brains of the Tao god in the monk's palm rubbed and spun like a washing machine, making a gurgling sound. This scene made Miss Awan laugh so hard that she rolled around on the ground. It was still that incomparably demonic, Barba-like laughter. Chapter 1290. The scene of the monk fighting the 2 Tao gods stunned all the cultivators in the god realm. For a moment, their spiritual senses formed a sea, and countless gazes converged on the profound doctrine hall. Although few cultivators dared to approach the core area of the Tao god's will, they still used their spiritual senses to observe the battle from afar. The monk held up the sky with one hand, toying with the 2 Tao gods' will in the palm of his hand. This made countless cultivators in the god realm incredulous. Even the cultivators living in seclusion in the deep mountains and forests of the god realm raised their heads, alarmed by this powerful aura. Countless spiritual birds flew out of the forest in surprise. They chirped and covered the entire sky. It created a magical scene as if night had fallen. This is a cultivator from Earth. When did such a person appear on Earth? Buddhism was holy, terrifyingly powerful. Obviously, the 2 patriarchs of the Zhou and Li families didn't expect the monk to be so powerful. Boom! At this moment, there was a loud noise, and the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The monk's giant hand that was holding the 2 Tao gods' brains broke free. In the sky that was shrouded in blood, a giant hoof print of a prehistoric beast appeared, charging towards the monk's palm like a mountain. The beast had a giant horn on its head, and its face was ferocious. Its body erupted with heavenly lightning brought by the Tao god's will, surrounded by black lightning. This was a creature summoned by the 2 Tao gods' brains in order to escape. Even a divine beast has appeared. Many experts in the god realm exclaimed, shocked by the scene in front of them. Rumor had it that the 7 Tao gods all had their own divine beasts. At first, they extracted the power of chaos to breed an egg. After tens of thousands of years of incubation and a lot of effort to cultivate it, it had today's combat power. Although the 2 Tao gods' wills had arrived together, they were still fighting separately. They didn't expect the monk to capture them so quickly. In order to escape, they chose to summon it together. This mixed yuan sky horn was raised by the Zhou family's patriarch. At the same time, the 2 Tao gods' wills knew that this summoned divine beast could only help them for a short period of time. The monk was too powerful, he was stronger than they had imagined. Now that they had summoned it, it was to buy time for the Li family's patriarch's wills to take shape. A divine beast born from chaos, the monk was silent. He actually had one too. However, his mythological beast was still in the shape of an egg. It had been incubated for almost 300 times, but it still hadn't hatched. At this moment, the Zhou family head's chaos origin heavenly horn beast charged toward his palm with a hoof print the size of a mountain. This scene alarmed everyone in the god domain. The monk didn't even put it in his eyes. He used the back of his hand to slap the divine beast away. Rumble. With a loud bang, a rift tens of thousands of feet long appeared in the sky. Everyone thought that this mixed yuan skyhorn beast might be of some use. Who knew that this beast would be sent back to the chaos by the monk with a single palm strike? This monk is too terrifying. The powerhouses of the realm of the gods sighed inwardly. This was a real fight between immortals. Lotus Sun and Odd Zhuo were already dumbstruck. Senior Golden Lamp, you're amazing. Lotus Sun had long known that the monk was very strong and not an ordinary person. However, the concept of power was very vague. Now that he was there, he had personally witnessed the famous scene of the monk fighting against two Tao gods and slapping the divine beasts away with a backhand. For a moment, Lotus Sun's thoughts ran wild, and she truly felt the terror and shock that transcended dimensional power. The head of the Zhou family had long known that the Chaos Origin Heavenly Horn Beast wouldn't be able to hold out for long. But as soon as it appeared, it was sent back by the monk with a single palm strike. This was something that the head of the Zhou family had never expected. Fortunately, the will of the Tao god from the head of the Leaf family had quickly taken shape in this short period of time. Now, two fully formed Tao god brains had descended into the sky and joined forces to fight the monk. This made the monk's expression turn a little more serious. His palm once again blossomed with boundless Buddhist light. Countless Buddhist seals crawled along his fingers and covered his entire arm. Infinite Buddhist seal. This was one of the monk's trump cards. When the Buddhist seal covered his entire arm, it could greatly increase his fighting strength. Now, he infused all of the Buddhist seals into his right hand. Condense power. It became the true Buddha's palm. The monk's palm grew a little more as he grabbed at the two Tao god brains. A swastika symbol appeared in his palm. The swastika seal suppressed everything. The scene was like a comet crashing into the mind of every spectator. The monk had a clear assessment of his fighting strength. Not to mention two Tao god brains. Even the complete form of 3 would not be able to withstand one of his palms. If not for the fact that he had lost 3,000 lifetimes of cultivation, the 10 Tao gods would not be a match for him. However, at this moment, 2 more explosions rang out in the sky. Another new Tao god had joined. And there were 2 of them. Countless people were shocked. The head of the Wu family and the head of the Zhao family have also joined. Retreat. The 7 great Tao sovereigns were shocked. They were extremely close to the battlefield. The wills of the 2 Tao gods attacked the core area of the profound Tao hole. They could barely withstand the radiation. However, the arrival of the 4 Tao gods, they already had a premonition that they would not be able to withstand it. If the wills of the Wu family and the Zhao family were fully formed, even if they were Tao sovereigns, if they were too close to the core area, they would be unable to move like toads. Buzz. The 4 Tao gods had descended. The terrifying mental pressure caused the god domain to split apart. With the profound Tao hall as the center, the ground there split open on the spot and extended for thousands of miles. Powerful psionic energy spread out. It was an unstoppable force that destroyed everything in its surroundings. The monk smiled bitterly in his heart. He did not expect that he would be able to force out the 4 Tao gods. The scene was gradually getting out of control. You've gone too far. Right at this moment, a pure and holy feather tore through the air and pierced through the sky. As the feather shuttled through the air, it grew larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it turned into an astonishing feather sword that slashed at the brain of the Tao god. It came from the west side of the profound Tao hall. It was Miss Ah Wan who had joined the battle. The monk saw the young girl flapping the wings behind her and soaring into the sky with her petite body. She did not fear the pressure of the 4 Tao gods at all. She used her divine will to control the feather sword and slashed in the air. It emitted a terrifying divine aura. Countless angel feathers drifted down from the sky like falling rain. Realm King of the God Realm. This is a battle of the cultivation world. Are you going to interfere? Bang. The sound of the Tao god that caused one's mind to ripple rang out from all directions. Just the sound wave of the Tao god dispersed the young girl's sword ray. As it was too chaotic and ethereal, no one could tell which family head it was. I'm here to mediate. Don't think that the four of you are having a good time now. You might have to pay the price later. Miss Awan reminded them kindly. The young girl's attitude was already very clear. Compared to the Tao gods of the God realm, she did not want to offend the man who was peeping on earth. She was also considering whether to interfere at this time. She knew her own strength. Before she became the myriad-winged god, she could not possibly be a match for these Tao gods. In fact, she could not help the monk at all. However, Miss Awan was also very clear. These Tao gods did not dare to attack her. Otherwise, if a war of the gods broke out, the god realm would not be able to withstand it. To deal with a monk, the four Tao gods had come down. This was something that none of the god realm cultivators had expected. Normally, the patriarchs of these large families would not easily show themselves. If the monk died in this battle, it would be a legendary battle. Was it too much? It seemed rather too much, but what no one could have expected was that there was still more to come. Not long after Miss Awan, world king of the god realm, kindly reminded them. 3 more Tao gods joined the battle. They came from the Ai family, the Chu family and the Xing family. Now, the 7 Tao gods had come down. Apart from the Gu family, the Wang family and the Lu family, the heads of the other 7 families had all made their moves. Do you want to compete with this poor monk to see who is more excessive? The monk asked. So what? The Tao god's voice echoed. The 7 Tao gods had made their stance very clear. It was fine if they didn't make a move, but since they made a move, they had to kill the monk. At that moment, the monk stared at the scene in the sky where the 7 Tao gods had come down and laughed bitterly in his heart. Ling Jinren, you can make your move now. If you don't, this poor monk will really have to meet Buddha. As soon as the monk said that, in the god realm, a hand that could envelop the entire god realm. It stretched out from an inexplicable direction and joined the battle. With just a middle finger, it pierced through the Tao god's brain of the Zhou family. Chapter 1291. In the forbidden area, Head Zhou spat out blood on the spot. He had no time to react to what had happened. He had used the will of a Tao god to condense the brain. In an instant, a huge hole had been made in it. The pain of the backlash from the brain's forcible disintegration was reflected back on him. Just this one blow had cost him 100 lifetimes of cultivation. Seclusion had been for nothing. Damn it, Head Zhou stood up. His Tao god body released spirit qi to condense a spirit fog to heal his injuries. Not long after. Boom! Bam! The Zhou family's patriarch's aura surged once again. Some spirit talismans with primal chaos crawled all over his body. They were extremely dense. At this crucial moment, the Zhou family's patriarch condensed his own Tao god seal and covered his entire body with it. No one can challenge the supreme domain of the gods. This Tao god seal, which contained his 200 lifetimes of cultivation, was all his dignity. Powerful spirit power spread out, and Head Zhou's body glowed. The ground in the depths of the Zhou family's forbidden area shook. Head Zhou stopped condensing his Tao god will, and decided to break out of the formation and fight in person. However, just as he was about to move, a figure flashing with the light of Buddha descended from the sky with his bald head down. The monk was here. Like a golden meteorite falling from the universe, he bluntly smashed Head Zhou's head with his fist, then turned into a streak of fire as he charged toward the Zhou family's forbidden area. After a huge explosion that shook the earth and the mountains, a huge explosion occurred. The monk's smooth forehead hit Head Zhou's skull. The two heads collided, and Head Zhou's skull split open on the spot. He directly fainted. As expected of a Tao god. First he suffered Ling Jinren's backlash, then you smashed his head, but he didn't die. Miss Awan followed behind the monk like a little attendant. She crouched next to Head Zhou's corpse and pinched his shoehorn face. Wow! A Dao god's face is so soft. Jin Dang. So, do you want to stab him? At that moment, Miss Awan took out her feather sword, and golden angel feathers floated in the air over the Zhou family's forbidden area. No need. The monk shook his head. I didn't plan to kill him. Miss Awan was shocked. Then why are you so ruthless? Tyrant said, this strength is just right. It can make him unconscious for a while, but not kill him. Miss Awan said, but I still don't understand, monk, why did you hit him? Jin Dang shook his head and laughed in spite of himself. I'm saving him. If I don't knock him out, rushing out would be courting death. That makes sense. Awan was suddenly enlightened. At this moment, in the god domain, all the cultivators were stunned. Which patriarch has joined the battle? The 7 great Dao gods were alarmed by this hand. This was because they could clearly feel that the otherworldly hand didn't come directly from the divine realm. They condensed their own Dao god wills to explore the area. In the end, he was surprised to find that the extraterrestrial hand actually came from Earth. It actually came from so far away. The remaining 6 Dao gods were shocked. Isn't that monk the #1 figure on Earth? Where did the owner of this pair of hands come from? The conversation of the 6 great Dao gods made the monk, who was in the forbidden area of the Zhou family, smile. The #1 figure on Earth. He had never said that before. Wang Ling had disintegrated Patriarch Zhou's Dao god brain with just his middle finger. This was something that no one had ever expected. In the sky, the remaining 6 Dao god brains had all condensed into form. Even without Patriarch Zhou, when the wills of the 6 Dao gods gathered together, they still burst out with world-shaking spiritual pressure. The 6 brains of the Dao god were like 6 divine suns, hanging high in the sky. Is this expert on Earth not going to show his true form? A voice rang out in the god domain again. The tone was flat, but it was deafening. Very quickly, the virtual bodies of the 6 Dao gods appeared in the sky. These were virtual images formed by the Dao gods' Dao wills. Their faces couldn't be seen clearly, but they were connected to the souls of the 6 Dao gods. They were waiting. At that moment, the otherworldly hand in front of them scattered into a vast expanse of light particles that sprinkled in the god domain. When the light particles gathered again, they formed Wang Ling's figure. After all, the 6 Dao ancestors hadn't shown themselves in their true forms, and Wang Ling couldn't be bothered to do so. Since they had also condensed a virtual image of their wills to meet each other, Wang Ling could already be considered the greatest courtesy he could offer. Although they also couldn't see the virtual image of Wang Ling's will clearly. The 6 Dao gods could sense that this was the figure of a young man. Its classmate Wang Ling. Lotus Sun could also tell. She hadn't seen Wang Ling's face, but she had recognized his silhouette from the virtual image's back. First, he had appeared to destroy a Dao god brain, then appeared as a virtual image, intending to fight 6 gods alone. Wang Ling's strength was beyond the girl's imagination. Was classmate Wang Ling born this powerful? Lotus Sun gazed at the confrontation between the immortals in the sky, and the expression on her face could no longer be described as astonishment. Ling Zhenren's strength can't just be described as powerful. Death Heavenly Dao gasped in amazement at the scene in front of them. It couldn't help recalling those primitive times. At that moment, Wang Ling's figure seemed so familiar, yet so strange. In the next moment, the virtual images of the 6 Dao gods attacked simultaneously. They moved horizontally at an incredible speed, shrinking the ground to inches as they shuttled through space. One forward and one backward, they covered a distance of 10,000 zhang. A silver stripe attacked from a tricky angle and locked onto Wang Ling's virtual image. Got him. With the shout of one of the family heads, the other 5 Dao gods instantly closed in from all directions. They collided with Wang Ling with their virtual bodies, and their killing intent was clear. Boom! The virtual images collided and the world shook. The vast will of the Tao gods engulfed the entire domain of the gods, which was instantly enveloped in an overwhelming pressure. The cultivators of the domain of the gods could no longer bear it. Some hid in their inner worlds, while others directly chose to flee. They're actually using virtual images to set up a trap. In the sky, after the virtual images collided, they were instantly enveloped in an invisible spirit fog. Death Heavenly Tao's cultivation couldn't break through the Tao God's spirit fog. But they could already see some clues. The Tao gods had used their virtual images to set up a trap. They looked like they were recklessly charging at Wang Ling's virtual images, but in fact, this was a joint sealing technique. The virtual images carried part of the power of their Tao god seals. Using several lifetimes' worth of cultivation, each of them could condense a powerful sealing force. After the virtual image trap collided with Wang Ling's virtual image, the power of the Tao god seal spread like a crawling insect, instantly covering Wang Ling's virtual image and erupting with dazzling divine light. The runes gathered by every Tao god seal are 10,000 trillion in weight. This is why. The weight of a god. The 6 Tao gods were even more pleased with themselves. They hadn't expected it to be so easy to suppress. After all, this was the weight of a god. It was impossible for anyone to break free. But in the next moment, Wang Ling twisted his shoulders. He stomped his foot. The Tao god seals that were binding the illusionary image were like fish scales that had been cut off, instantly disintegrating. They were shaken to pieces. Just for a moment. The battle was over. In the sky, the brains of the 6 Tao gods dissipated into nothingness. The oppressive red clouds instantly dispersed, and the sun shone brightly in a cloudless sky. Bam 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 bam. The 6 Tao gods were shaken to the point of vomiting blood in their respective families' forbidden areas. But the battle wasn't over yet. What greeted the 6 Tao gods next was the monk's head hammer that fell from the sky. The monk had already split himself into 6 clones and aimed them at the family forbidden areas of the 6 Tao gods. He planned to kill them one at a time. This would completely cut off the possibility of these Tao gods counterattacking. Chapter 1292. In the profound Tao Hall, the monk and Miss Awan each carried a few of them, piling up the 7 Tao gods' corpses like a human pyramid. After the monk's east wind, 100% bloodlock knockout, 10,000 Li head hammer technique. The 7 Tao gods became like this, and they were still in a state of unconsciousness until now. Blood mixed with yellow liquid flowed out. Miss Awan noticed that it was flowing out of the head of the Zhou family. Of the 7 Tao gods, the head of the Zhou family was the most miserable. It was also a backlash, but only Patriarch Zhou's Tao god brain had been directly pierced by Wang Ling's finger. In other words, the damage from the backlash had been maxed out. After suffering from the most severe backlash and the monk's head hammer, the bones in his head were fractured. In other words, of the 7 Tao gods, only the head of the Zhou family had been split open. Monk, don't tell me it's his brain. Miss Awan frowned and asked, pinching her nose. Don't worry, Miss Awan. This is a Tao god, he won't die if his brain drips out. Jin Deng's face was kind. Also, it will only benefit him. Monk, what do you mean? The brain that's flowing out now might be the water that flowed out of his head when he chose to attack. The monk sighed deeply. How could the heads of the Wang, Gu and Lu families be so clear about this? Wouldn't it be fine if they just went into seclusion? Their cultivation wasn't high enough, but they still had to intervene. That was great. With the backlash, the head of the Zhou family had lost 100 lifetimes of cultivation. Of course, the other heads weren't much better. On average, the 7 Tao ancestors had 80 lifetimes. The Lu family was ranked 10th among the top 10 families of the domain of the gods. After this wave, the head of the Liu family would probably replace the Zhou family and leap to third place. The monk could almost imagine the way the head of the Liu family couldn't help laughing in the forbidden area. Now, the situation was set. After the 7 Tao gods were beaten up, it was a foregone conclusion that Earth would level up. Elders, please come out. The monk turned the prayer beads in his hand and glanced in one direction without looking up. Master. Several Tao masters walked out of the ruins and trembled at the scene in front of them. They would never have imagined that such a scene would occur. Jin Deng took out a contract from his sleeve. All of you are clan elders. Right now, your clan heads are obviously unable to move. All of you will act as representatives and sign the contract with your blood. Sign it. After the signature is completed, it will be considered that you have agreed to the plan to upgrade Earth, and you can take away the corpse of a family head as a reward. The Tao Master's mouths twitched. It was obvious that he had no other choice. Their patriarch's injuries were very serious. If they continued to delay, there might be some trouble. Losing one more lifetime of cultivation meant that their family's heritage would decrease by a bit. They could not afford such a loss. Let me go first. No. Don't fight with me. Let me sign first. My family's patriarch's injuries are the most serious. Bullshit. The head of the Xing family was the one who suffered the most. Can't you see that his neck has sunk into his collarbone? Then, the 7 Tao masters began to fight over the contract. The monk could not help but sigh inwardly at this scene. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have done it in the first place. Just like that, it dragged on for another hour. The 7 great Tao venerables fought for the right to sign first, and they fought again on the spot before they finished signing. When they returned to the clan's land with their respective family heads, they were all bruised and swollen. Take care, everyone. When your patriarch wakes up, remember to tell him that the monk was the one who hit him, and it had nothing to do with me. Miss Awan waved her hand as she watched the elders leave. At this point, the preparations for upgrading Earth were ready. The monk put away the contract and was about to go back when a stream of light suddenly descended from the sky. To the monk's surprise, this person did not dress like a clan elder, but seemed to be just an old servant. But this old servant's combat strength was surprisingly strong. He had actually reached the level of an upper Tao master. It should be noted that the 7 clan elders who had attacked just now were Grand Clan elders. Most of them were just low-level Tao masters, and the strongest Zhou clan elder was a middle-level Tao master. The monk turned the Buddha beads and deduced the old servant's origin. Are you from the Wang clan? Greetings, Master Jin Deng. Master's foresight is divine, I admire you. The servant looked peaceful, and he did not come to the pottery shelf this time. After all, the Wang clan, Gu clan, and Liu clan were all understanding people, and were not as itchy as the remaining 7 clans. As he spoke, the servant also took out a contract from his lapel. This was the joint agreement of the 3 patriarchs of the Wang clan, Gu clan, and Liu clan, personally stamped with the patriarch's seal. Now this old servant of the Wang clan sent it on their behalf. The old man presented the joint contract with both hands, and at the same time, he looked apologetic. When the 7 patriarchs fought earlier, the 3 patriarchs did not help you. I hope you can understand. I don't mind. The monk smiled. The most taboo when in seclusion is to have your mind shaken. There is a reason why the Gu clan and the Wang clan have been the top 2 in the God realm for so many years. I would also like to thank the 3 patriarchs for sending me this joint contract to show my sincerity. This old man admires the master's bearing. After saying that, the old man looked around again. The monk knew who he was looking for. Ling Jinren has already left. It's a pity that I wasn't able to meet Ling Jinren. The old man sighed. He had killed the Zhou clan's Tao god as soon as he appeared, and then defeated 6 Tao gods with just the power of a virtual body. What kind of terrifying power was this? When the patriarch of the Wang family had stamped the joint contract, he had specially told the old man that if he saw Ling Jinren, he must greet him. But now, it seemed that the time had yet to come. In the end, some things couldn't be forced. Although Ling Jinren has left, he left something for me to give to the three patriarchs, and I hope you can deliver it on my behalf. At that moment, the monk's words made the old man's eyes light up. Ling Jinren actually left something behind. What is it? In fact, this was also this poor monk's suggestion. The monk smiled. The three patriarchs are still in seclusion and haven't made a move from beginning to end. Thus, this poor monk believes that the remaining 7 big clans won't let the matter rest. If they join forces to retaliate now, I'm afraid it will be another disaster. You're right, master. The old servant of the Wang family nodded. Thus, I had Ling Jinren leave behind 3 golden talismans. As the monk spoke, his fingertips moved, and 3 streams of light flowed out from between his fingers to hit the old servant's hand in front of him. The old servant's hands trembled as he gripped the golden talismans. Dare I ask, master, how do I use these golden talismans? The monk smiled. If you run into trouble, shout, quickly go and invite my Buddha Wang Ling. That'll do. Chapter 1293. In the distance, Death Heavenly Tao, who had yet to leave the domain of the gods, didn't know what to say to describe his current mood. Senior, will the 7 families who attacked really attack us again after being beaten so badly? Lotus Sun asked the Buddha's golden lotus. In the domain of the gods, apart from the Gu family and the Wang family who often take turns in first and second place, the rankings of the other 8 families change more or less every year. When the gap between them isn't too big, there's no way for them to truly stabilize their rankings, Death Heavenly Tao said. Even if the 7 families don't attack the Wang and Gu families, I'm afraid they'll join forces to settle accounts with the Lu family, which is ranked 10th. The Lu family was the only one who had gotten off easy in this incident. The foundations of the 7 families couldn't catch up to the Wang and Gu families to begin with, so they didn't really have much of an impact on them. But after this battle, their foundations had been shaken. This was equivalent to shortening the gap between the Lu family and the 7 families. In order to prevent the Lu family from taking advantage of the chaos to rise to power, it was very likely that the 7 families would join forces to seek revenge. Furthermore, they would only pick on the weak. Can the Heavenly Tao punish Tao gods? Chua asked curiously at that moment. Except for the white list users and Tao ancestors, no one can stand above the Heavenly Tao. Death Heavenly Tao sighed. I can't fight Tao gods now, mainly because the power of the Heavenly Tao has been divided. If we 3,000 Heavenly Tao combine, we can hang Tao gods up. Then can you hang my Shifu up and beat him up? No. I might be killed instead. Death Heavenly Tao was helpless. In fact, he had always had a bold guess. That was, the power Wang Ling had shown so far might not be his full strength. Back then, Tao Ancestor had divided the Heavenly Tao into 3,000 Heavenly Tao for nothing more than a balance of power. If there were other Ling Zhenren in this universe's parallel space, then when all these Ling Zhenrens combined, how strong would they be? But all of this was Death Heavenly Tao's guess and hypothesis. He didn't dare think about it any further. One Wang Ling was already enough to throw the Heavenly Tao into chaos. If all the Wang Lings in the space were combined, wouldn't the entire Heavenly Tao be exterminated? On the way back to Earth, Death Heavenly Tao found the girl frantically entering information in her little notebook. It looked like the harvest from the gods' domain this time was quite great. What did you comprehend? Death Heavenly Tao asked. The seniors of the domain of the gods are indeed very strong, and their train of thought is very novel, Lotus Sun answered honestly. She recorded everything she saw in words, and then used her drawing tablet to record what she saw to prevent herself from forgetting. Junior sister Lotus Sun can actually draw. In the core world of Death Heavenly Tao, Audiobook was also amazed as he held the Buddha Golden Lotus. In a sense, the girl was very versatile in all aspects. I just picked it up randomly when I had nothing to do, Lotus Sun said modestly. A friendly reminder, Junior sister Lotus Sun, if you draw my Shifu's face on it, there's a high chance it'll turn into a mosaic. Audiobook said at that moment. The great shielding spell had been upgraded several times, and its shielding effect had become even stronger. Who knew what would happen in the end? Don't worry, Senior Zhua, I didn't draw classmate Wang Ling's face at all. Look. This is what I drew. Lotus Sun made her painting public. She was drawing a scene of Wang Ling's virtual image fighting against the virtual images of the 6 great Tao gods. Virtual images couldn't be seen clearly to begin with. So the girl had only drawn the outline of Wang Ling's back. Then, she had drawn an ellipsis on his head. This is... Audiobook was stunned. This is classmate Wang Ling's real body. Lotus Sun stared at her painting and nodded with satisfaction. Audiobook, after the matter of Earth's upgrade was settled, Golden Lamp and Miss Awan returned to Earth before Death Heavenly Tao did. The monk's ability to shrink the Earth into inches was too heaven-defying, and was several times faster than Death Heavenly Tao's direct teleportation. Their next step was to go to Battle Sect and explain to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal the matter of Earth's upgrade. When the time came for Earth to complete its upgrade, the whole of Earth would experience a terrifying tribulation. That was right, this wasn't a tribulation for cultivators. It was a tribulation for Earth. Earth needed to weather this tribulation before it could complete its upgrade. At that moment, all the team leaders had gathered in Battle Sect's True Venerate Hall. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Immortal Jin Yuan, Fong Xing and Crispy Noodles Tao Monarch of the security team were all present. The power of Divine Tao Star's Divine Crystal is extraordinary, so it's very easy to upgrade Earth. But whether or not Earth can withstand the heavenly tribulation is another question, said Miss Awan. What's a planet's heavenly tribulation like? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was puzzled. Most people actually didn't know much about this. Because almost no one had experienced a planet's tribulation before, the only person who might know was Immortal Jin Yuan. He had been working on repairing Drought Star. Because of the complexity and scale of the project, the progress had been very slow. But Immortal Jin Yuan had always enjoyed working on Drought Star. It was as fun as being an MC. Most cultivators use heavenly lightning as their main form of tribulation. At that moment, the monk said, the power and scale of this heavenly lightning tribulation are related to one's realm. The higher one's realm, the greater the range and power of the heavenly lightning tribulation. But the scale of a planet's tribulation will definitely be global. What the monk means is that if Earth's tribulation isn't handled well, a lot of cultivators might be electrocuted. Miss Awan echoed. Global. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was astonished. This was an upgrade for a planet's tribulation. Naturally, the power of the heavenly lightning tribulation would be unparalleled. If a cultivator outside was struck by it, they would probably die. I understand what you mean, Master. You want me to communicate with all the countries in the world so that cultivators can do their best to protect themselves from the heavenly tribulation. Fong Xing cupped his chin and shook his head. I don't think that's enough. It's like a flu outbreak, you can't make everyone obediently stay at home. There will always be people courting death who want to go out and take a look. Brother Fong's words make sense. Staying at home or using magic artifacts for protection is far from enough to solve the problem. At that moment, the monk shook his head. Senior Immortal, you're oversimplifying things. The scale of Earth's tribulation is certain to be global, but this humble monk never said that it had to be heavenly lightning tribulation. Actually, if it was heavenly lightning tribulation, it would be easy to deal with, they just needed to think of a way to guide it somewhere. Ling Jinren was a living human lightning rod. But Earth's tribulation wasn't as simple as heavenly lightning tribulation, this would be an attack launched by the condensed power of various planetary spirits like the spirit of the sun. As far as the monk knew, the energy of these planet spirits came from the chaos of the universe. To put it bluntly, it was the same substance as the chaos in the middle circle of the unspeakable land. If a cultivator from the domain of the gods was soaked in it for 3 minutes, they would be done for. As for earth cultivators, they would probably die if they touched it. Then, Master, do you have a solution? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked at that moment. This humble monk has an egg. The monk said. Me too. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal raised 2 fingers. 2. Golden lamp. The daily life of an immortal king. Chapter 1294. The monk took out his divine beast egg, which had been incubated for 300 lifetimes without bearing fruit. The entire egg was dark blue in color and had a crystal-like texture. There were purple patterns on the outside of the eggshell that looked like they were carved, which reflected beautiful light in the light. Master, do you mean to draw all the energy that erupts during Earth's tribulation into this egg? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal understood. That's right. The monk nodded. The power of chaos has the characteristic of mutual attraction. This poor monk's egg was nurtured by chaos, and is suitable to be used as a primer. In fact, it wasn't hard to find a magic weapon that contained the power of chaos. The heads of the major clans in the domain of the gods probably had one. World-defying magic weapons weren't rare in the domain of the gods. But a world-defying magic weapon infused with the power of chaos was priceless. If a world-defying magic weapon contained the power of chaos, it could substantially increase its power. A world-defying magic weapon with 1% of the power of chaos could increase its power by 5%, even if it only contained a trace of its original power. This was also why Tao gods were so keen on raising divine beasts. These creatures, which were born from chaos, were naturally infused with the power of chaos into divine weapons. They were similar to enhanced syringes. Using something from a divine beast, such as its horns, hair and so on, as supplementary materials to strengthen a world-defying magic weapon, there was a small probability that the magic weapon would gain the power of chaos. Golden Lamp's divine beast egg had been extracted from chaos a long time ago. But the difference between it and other Tao gods was that there should be some movement in normal chaos after 10 or 20 lifetimes. The monk's egg seemed to be particularly special. Like Neza, it refused to come out no matter what, so the monk had thought of using Earth's tribulation this time. This poor monk has his own selfish motives, but I hope that everyone can help me, the monk said to everyone. It's just a matter of convenience. Master, you're too polite. I also want to know what on earth will be born from this egg of yours. After saying that, Senior Immortal turned around and took out his phone to make several calls. During this time, Senior Immortal spoke as many as 7 or 8 different languages. Upgrading the Earth was a major event. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already asked Huaxiao Alliance for instructions, and hoped that the head of state could consult with the leaders of various cultivation countries. This was beneficial to all the cultivators on Earth. On one hand, it solved the problem of insufficient spirit qi. On the other hand, it allowed the true immortal realm to be further liberated. Done. 10 minutes later, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal turned around and replied, "This afternoon, Guoping, the planet's diplomatic envoy, will come to Battle Sect to meet His Majesty King Kai in person. Everyone will determine the specific time for Earth's upgrade. I'll have to trouble Kai-sama with this matter. This matter should be settled as soon as possible. The initial date is Tuesday, December 1st, although Tyrant was the one who brought up the idea of upgrading the Earth, Tyrant was not the only one. However, Tyrant didn't want too many people to know his identity. It was actually suitable for Miss Awan to handle this matter. It would be better to directly establish Divine Tao Star on the surface in order to have more friendly exchanges with Earth, to actively upgrade Earth, and to benefit all cultivators on Earth. Hey hey. Will there be a reward if I show up? The young girl put her hands on her hips and asked confidently. This humble monk can provide Miss Ah Wan with 3 additional consecration services. The tyrant smiled. Deal. Miss Ah Wan nodded. At that moment, the tyrant sighed silently in his heart. This world king of the divine world was too easy to coax. Since he was already on Earth, wouldn't it be better to directly ask Ling Jinren for an enlightenment spell? This enlightenment spell was more powerful than his consecration spell. Elsewhere, Patriarch Shou woke up from his coma. His whole body was covered in bandages. His head in particular was wrapped up tightly, and his whole body reeked of medicinal liquid. In the end, he still had the heritage of a great family. His family's medicine storehouse was stocked with rare godly medicines and spirit plants for use at this critical moment. As soon as Patriarch Shou woke up, he saw 6 men sitting around his bed, and was so startled that he almost fainted again. Why are you here? They were the other heads of the 6 families who had been beaten up. After being carried back by their respective clan elders for treatment, it didn't take long for them to wake up one after another. Patriarch Shou was the last to wake up. We had something important to discuss, but you were the most seriously injured, so we came early to wait for you to wake up, said Patriarch Xing. His head had been hammered into his collarbone by the monk earlier. After returning to the family, the Xing clan elder had mobilized several people to pull his head out of his body and put it back in its place. The 7 great Tao gods had suffered a crushing defeat in the battle with the cultivators from Earth. This was something that no one had expected. Is that monk gone? Patriarch Shou's heart was still fluttering with fear. He had been hit hard by the monk's heavenly hammer, and had felt like he had almost died. Patriarch Shou, I think you're focusing on the wrong thing. Patriarch Xing shook his head. This monk was indeed very powerful, but the problem was that the one who had really traumatized them wasn't the monk. It was that terrifying figure from Earth. Don't blame Patriarch Shou. He was seriously injured by the monk's hammer, and actually has no idea what happened afterwards. The other head sighed. They actually envied Patriarch Shou. His Tao God brain had been destroyed as soon as that young expert from Earth's heavenly hand had appeared. Fortunately, it had been destroyed quickly enough, and Patriarch Shou hadn't been able to fully react. After that, he had been hit by the monk's hammer, so he naturally didn't know how terrifying Wang Ling was. In contrast, the other 6 Tao gods had faced Wang Ling's in a head-on confrontation with their virtual bodies, and then been beaten up en masse. That kind of mental blow was truly indescribable. The other heads couldn't help sighing with emotion. After this upgrade, I think it won't be long before Earth catches up to the domain of the gods. 100 years? Maybe 1,000 years. Maybe it won't even take that long. Compared to all that, I just want to know when such a figure appeared on Earth. Could he be a Tao ancestor? He can't be a Tao ancestor. We all know this very well. It looks like the Gu, Wang, and Lu families already knew the details, and deliberately didn't make a move this time. That's right. Now that our cultivation has been damaged, I'm afraid the gap between us and the 3 clans will widen. The Lu clan's foundation is not strong to begin with, but after this incident, it is very likely that they will surpass us and step on our heads. At that moment, Patriarch Shou, who had just woken up from his serious injuries, understood. So what do you mean? In our current state, we definitely can't suppress the Wang and Gu families, since we can't beat them to begin with, but we can still bully the Lu family. Patriarch Xing said, the 7 of us have lost all our dignity in this battle, and all the forces in the domain of the gods will definitely have some complaints about this. Taking it out on the Lu family is one way to suppress them, and the other is to intimidate them. Chapter 1295. Wang Ling's slap had caught Patriarch Shou off guard. Because of this, his impression of Wang Ling was actually very limited in this battle. After all, Patriarch Zhou had never had the experience of facing Wang Ling's virtual body head-on. He couldn't understand the other patriarch's fear. But to be honest, Patriarch Zhou didn't think this was a good idea. None of them were in peak condition right now. If he hurriedly attacked the Liu family, and if something went wrong, he was afraid that he would really be consigned to eternal damnation. There are risks in doing this. Have you thought about it, my lords? Patriarch Zhou asked. He felt that it was even more important to keep a cool head at a time like this. It's very clear that the Wang, Gu, and Liu families are working together. Although we're targeting the Liu family, how can you guarantee that the Wang and Gu families won't send help? Everyone else fell silent at these words. Yes, they couldn't guarantee that the Gu and Wang families wouldn't help. These two patriarchs were both at the upper Tao God realm and were far stronger than them. They had come to the Zhou residence to wait for Patriarch Zhou to wake up, thinking that their plan to suppress the Liu family this time would be supported. In the end, they hadn't expected Patriarch Zhou's words to cause them to sink into deep thought. Listening to Patriarch Zhou's analysis, I also think that this seems risky. That's right, if things go badly, wouldn't our reputation be ruined even more? Everyone. We're 7 people working together. Patriarch Xing sensed that the atmosphere wasn't right and hurriedly said with wide eyes. The Wang and Gu families were indeed strong, but the 7 of them working together might not necessarily lose. Don't ask me about this. I haven't recovered from my injuries and don't want to take the risk. My lords, please go back. At that moment, Patriarch Zhou sighed and shook his head. My lords, please do as you please. I won't see you out. Since they had already been asked to leave, there was no point in staying here any longer. It was Patriarch Xing who had originally proposed the idea of a crusade. Naturally, he didn't want to leave the matter at that, and left in a huff with a flick of his sleeve. After the 6 patriarchs were sent off, Zhou Zhentian, the Zhou family's grand elder, came to the confinement room in the rented land. He kowtowed to the awakened Zhou clan head. Clan head, there's a matter that I'm not sure if I should speak of. Zhou Zhentian kowtowed and asked. Speak. The Zhou clan's clan head closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. After all, he was a Tao god. The external injuries on his body had almost recovered. His internal injuries could be healed in the future. His only regret was that he had lost his cultivation. We've always been on good terms with the 6 families. They might be disappointed if we disrespect the head of the Xing family. Zhou Zhentian said. He's just trying to regain his face. Which is more important, face or his life? Patriarch's words make sense. Zhou Zhentian was surprised. He didn't know if it was because the water in his brain had flowed out, but he felt that his master's thinking had become a lot clearer. That monk is very strange, but the experts on Earth are even stranger. The 6 of them couldn't defeat them even if they joined forces. Therefore, it's better to be careful, said the Zhou family's patriarch. Actually, after saying so much. In the end, it could be summed up in 3 words, I chickened out. Go back and pick some treasures from the medicine warehouse and send them to the 6 families. This is a little help that I can provide. The Zhou family's clan head said this and slowly closed his eyes. You may leave. Yes. Under the instigation of the Xing family's clan head, the remaining 5 Tao gods finally decided to join the battle and carry out the plan to suppress the Liu family. They flew side by side in the air, leaping over mountains and rivers, heading straight for the Liu family's forbidden land. The divinity territory was so vast that ordinary cultivators would have to go through several twists and turns if they wanted to travel. They even had to consider the restrictions in the air. Not to mention the special privileges of the 10 families, the Tao gods were the leaders of the families. They could even ignore the existence of the restrictions and travel between different areas. The Zhou family's clan head said so much, but to put it bluntly, he's just chickening out. The Xing family's clan head's face was gloomy. He had already thought about the feasibility of this operation. The Liu family would never think that they would directly cause trouble for the Liu family after just going through a great battle. Most importantly, the Liu family's forbidden land was very far from the Wang family and the Gu family. The two clan heads would not easily make a move. Even if they sent reinforcements, they would have to hurry. If the 6 Tao gods worked together to suppress them, the Liu family would not be able to wait for reinforcements to arrive. We must act as soon as possible. We must finish this quickly, the Li family head said. He also thought that this plan was feasible. At this moment, the 6 Tao gods moved together in the air. Wherever they passed, the space distorted and became blurry. They crossed mountains and seas, crossed crowds, stepped through space tunnels, and leaped to the place they wanted to go. We're finally here. When they were still some distance away from the Liu family's forbidden land, the 6 Tao gods stopped. They focused and adjusted their breathing, quickly focusing their minds. In front of them was a bustling city. It was the Liu family's land. The plaque at the city gate was engraved with the words, Liu City, in huge golden letters. They did not take the Liu family seriously at first. After all, the Liu family was ranked last among the 10 families. Not only was the Liu family weaker than the 10 families in terms of combat power and overall foundation, but they were also ostracized by the 10 families in the divinity territory. There were too many uncertainties in the 10 families' position. No one knew how long the Liu family could stay in the 10 families' position. Moreover, the Liu family had been in turmoil ever since they became the 10 families' leader. Previously, a direct descendant of the Liu family, a girl, had left. No one knew what she was doing on Earth. The Liu family had a bad reputation. In the sky, the Xing family head laughed and said, the 6 of us have gathered here and attacked together. We have given Liu Fengnan enough face. He called out the Liu family head's name directly without any respect. The aura of the 6 Tao gods hovered in the sky above Liu City. The pressure was not as terrifying as the brain of the Tao god, but for the cultivators of the god realm, it was not much weaker. Countless members of the Liu clan and citizens in the city raised their heads. Their eyes were filled with terror. Everyone could feel that the 6 Tao gods had come with ill intentions. They were probably here to provoke a war. The 6 Tao gods have gathered in front of Liu City. The Liu family is honored by your presence. I wonder why the 6 Tao gods are so aggressive. The Liu family head welcomed them in front of the city gate. He walked out of the city and looked down at the sky. He raised his hand and bowed. He had the aura of a scholar, gentle and refined. The 6 of us are here. Why isn't the master of the Liu family coming to see us? Isn't Liu Fengnan not giving us face? The Xing family head took a step forward and questioned coldly. Meanwhile, on Earth, the monk projected the scene from the god realm and played it on the screen in the True Venerate Hall. There was still some time before Guoping arrived. Before Guoping's arrival, everyone in the True Sovereign Hall was watching the battle. Ha ha ha, monk, you guessed it right. They really made a move. Miss Awan stared at the screen intently. She didn't expect everything to turn out as the monk had predicted. The script has already been written for them. The monk put his palms together and said, Amitabha. Then, he smiled and said, why don't you guess how many Tao gods will die in this battle? Chapter 1296. So they can die. Miss Awan looked surprised when she heard the monk's words. The death of a Tao god is different from the death of an ordinary cultivator, said the monk. After all, they had already become Tao gods. Even if a person of this level died, it was also possible to exchange one's cultivation for a life. But even if they didn't die in the end, no matter how you looked at it, the attack of the 6 Tao gods this time had ended in a bloody loss. Using the cultivation of dozens of lifetimes in seclusion to pay for one's impulsiveness didn't sound like something a Tao god should do. The monk sighed in his heart and felt sorry for them. In the end, it was the superior cultivation resources of the domain of the gods that had made these upper-level cultivators too arrogant. Even Tao gods couldn't avoid it. In contrast, the two from the Wang and Gu families. Their hearts were as still as water. This was the bearing that upper-level cultivators should have. To be able to stay in the top 2 all the time, this made sense. It's all fate. The monk sighed inwardly as he looked at the image projected on the screen. The script of the 6 Tao gods had actually already been laid out clearly. As cultivators, if they were too impetuous, they wouldn't be able to accomplish much. Even if they were lucky and achieved great things, once they fell, they would be smashed to pieces. At that moment, Death Heavenly Tao had already arrived in the true venerated Great Hall. Holding the Buddha Golden Lotus in his hands, Audiobook was released from the core world by Death Heavenly Tao. Hello, Brother Joie. Hello, Director Joie. Everyone in Battle Sect cupped their fists in salute. Looking at the scene in front of him, Audiobook scratched his head. When Senior Death Heavenly Tao took me and Junior Sister Lotus Sun to the domain of the gods to watch, I thought the battle was over. I didn't expect it to start again so soon. Before leaving the domain of the gods, Lotus Sun and Audiobook had heard Death Heavenly Tao's analysis of the 10 major families in the domain of the gods. They just hadn't expected it to come true so quickly. How's Student Lotus Sun doing? Fong Xing asked as he stared at the Buddha Golden Lotus in Audiobook's hand. Audiobook smiled. Let her speak for herself. Seeing Fong Xing, Wang Zhen, Lu Qingyi, Gu Xuanji and Immortal Zhen Yuan in the true venerated Great Hall, Lotus Sun was very surprised. On the way back to Earth earlier, Audiobook had told Lotus Sun more or less everything about Battle Sect. Moreover, he deliberately kept her in suspense, saying that there were a few classmates she knew in the Battle Sect. After ruling out Wang Ling, Lotus Sun had a lot of guesses. She guessed that it was Wang Zhen, Lu Qingyi, Immortal Zhen Yuan under the alias Zhen Yuan, and Gu Xuanji. That was because they were all transfer students who were good at their studies. Furthermore, he seemed to be very friendly with Wang Ling as soon as he entered number 60 high school. But she never would have guessed that Fong Xing would actually be in cahoots with them. Classmate Fong Xing, so you're also, the young girl was stunned. Now she finally understood. Why had Fong Xing and the others been unexpectedly eliminated the night before the final battle in the 9 Dragon Mountains art competition? Because if these people participated in the competition, the others didn't even need to play. Senior Joie, what happened to Junior Sister Lotus Sun? I realized that number 60 high is a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It's so scary. Lotus Sun's mood was very complicated. I'm really sorry for keeping it from you for so long. Fong Xing smiled. It's fine. I won't be surprised by anything I see now. After the experiences of the past few days, Lotus Sun felt that her eyes had improved tremendously. She felt that the cultivation world was very small. Because there were so many experts lying dormant by her side. She also felt that the cultivation world was very big. It was as vast and boundless as the divine domain, making people yearn for it. Are you taking notes? At that moment, Fong Xing noticed that Lotus Sun was diligently writing things down in her little notebook. Senior Death Heavenly Tao said that if I return to my physical body, I'll forget my memories. That's why I wrote it down. Lotus Sun smiled. I'm now sketching classmate Fong Xing. We'll be good friends from now on. Fong Xing shrugged. It's fine if you want to be good sisters with me. Lotus Sun. After returning to the realm of the gods' Willow City, it was out of everyone's expectation. In the face of the Xing family's patriarch's overbearing questioning, the Xing family's master Xing did not respond. This Lu family grand elder didn't have the slightest hint of fear on his face. Lord Dao God came to our Lu family's city gates, and we treated him with courtesy, but Lord Dao God is so overbearing. Who's the one losing face? The Lu family grand elder smiled. My lord has always been undistracted when he's in seclusion. I think the 6 Lord Dao gods won't make things difficult for our Lu family for not taking action earlier, right? After he said this, the expressions of the 6 Dao gods changed slightly. The Lu family grand elder actually knew the purpose of their trip. This was a little thought-provoking. It was as if he had already expected this. It seems that the Lu family grand elder is well aware. I think there's no need to play dumb. At that moment, Patriarch Li snorted and laughed. Our 7 families are fighting for the divine domain, but your Lu family took the lead and hit at home, ultimately leading to our defeat. This Patriarch Li didn't mention anything about the Gu and Wang families, and instead directly threw the blame on the Lu family. The Lu family grand elder was a little flabbergasted by such rogue behavior. You can always find a way to frame someone. The Lu family grand elder shook his head with a wry smile. Then, what do you want to do? It's very simple. Since you're not willing to protect the divine domain, it's necessary to pay some money. Patriarch Li said, 10 billion divine gems for each of our families will be enough. But if your Lu family can't pay it, then you have to think about the consequences. What consequences? You have to think about the people behind you and the disciples of the Lu family. That was all. The Lu family grand elder's face darkened. He knew that it was not easy to be the 10th among the aristocratic families. But he didn't expect to be bullied to this extent. How about this? I'll make a bet with the Dao gods. If I lose, the Lu family will be at your disposal, said the Lu family grand elder. Oh. What bet? The head of the Xing family was intrigued. You're all Dao gods, but you're bullying a small Dao master like me. It's a joke. In terms of combat power, I admit defeat. The Lu family grand elder bowed and said, later, I'll go first and use the land of the divine domain as the limit. After 3 minutes, you'll act. If you can find me, I'll lose. Otherwise, Lord Dao gods, please leave immediately. Do you know the difference between a god and a Dao master? The head of the Xing family could not believe that the grand elder of the Lu family would say something like that. It's enough for me to find you alone. If the 6 of us work together, we can dig you out no matter where you hide. I think you shouldn't be too confident. Then we'll wait and see. The 6 Dao gods in the void nodded. The divine domain was vast. Even if the Lu family grand elder was a Dao master, he couldn't go to the Wang family or the Gu family to ask for help. They wanted to see what the Lu family grand elder wanted to do. They wanted to see what the Lu family grand elder wanted to do. On Earth, the onlookers were also surprised. Hey! Monk! What does the Lu family grand elder want to do? Can a Dao master hide from the god of thieves? Miss Ah Wan put her hands on her waist and asked. Of course not. The monk couldn't help laughing on the spot. He had already guessed what the grand elder of the Lu family was trying to do. This grand elder of the Lu family is a smart man. He's only using this skill because the aftermath of Ling Zhenren's palm will affect the people in the city. Wow! Isn't this the legendary teleportation of graves? Miss Ah Wan's eyes lit up. This TV show was so good. She couldn't wait. Chapter 1297. I think Lu Qingru is probably crazy. How can a Dao master like him escape? The Xing family master said the name of the grand elder of the Lu family. He chuckled. He didn't know what Lu Qingru was thinking. Any one of the 6 Tao gods could cover the entire divine realm with their spiritual senses. Not to mention 3 minutes, even if Lu Qingru was given another 30 minutes, they would still be able to dig themselves out even if they were buried underground. As soon as the bet started, Lu Qingru turned into a beam of light and disappeared. He was extremely fast. He only had 3 minutes. He used all the treasures and tools that could be used to speed up. The Kunpeng token, the Dharma artifact he borrowed from the Lu family master, played a crucial role. It was mixed with 2% chaotic force, increasing its power by nearly 10% from its original base. When he held it, he injected spiritual energy into it, turning his arms into Kunpeng wings. He disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Lu Qingru knew he couldn't escape. His ultimate goal was to find a place where no one was. The best place was the divine ocean. 1 minute left. Without hesitation, Lu Qingru flapped his Kunpeng wings. He put them away when he was close to the surface of the divine ocean and dove into it. The divine ocean was bright and the depths were dark. Every meter he went down would put him under great pressure. After 40,000 meters at the bottom of the divine scent sea, there were no signs of life. A Tao master could dive up to 5,000 meters at most. Tao gods, on the other hand, could dive 40,000 meters down. This was the huge difference in realms. At this moment, close to the limit of the deep sea, Lu Qingru's eyes emitted light like searchlights. In a trench in front of him was an ancient ruin of the god realm. There were ancient buildings that had been eroded by the sea water of the deity sea. These buildings were extremely fragile after being soaked in the sea water all year round. They could be torn apart easily. There were all kinds of immortal ships, spirit boats, and even cultivator corpses hanging on the walls of the trench. The divine ocean of the divine realm was an extremely mysterious place. Countless cultivators from the divine realm used modern technology to explore this place. Most of them were buried here forever. Choosing this trench was something that Lu Qingru had planned for a long time. There were very few traces of life around this trench, and it gave off the feeling of a seabed garbage dump. The buildings, the waste, and the corpses of the dead were all piled up in this trench. It exuded a very foul smell all year round. We're finally here. Arriving at the destination, Lu Qingru was completely relieved. Basically, everything was as he had expected. Soon, Lu Qingru, who was 5,000 meters away from the sea, felt a powerful aura coming from the sea. He ran for 3 minutes. The Tao god took less than 3 seconds to catch up with him after 3 minutes. The opponent's chasing speed was terrifyingly fast. Relying on his powerful spiritual sense to lock onto him, Lu Qingru knew that he had no chance to escape. Soon, 6 divine flames appeared at the bottom of the sea. These were the flames emitted from the bodies of the 6 Tao gods after they lit up the core world. They were also known as divine flames. This was also one of the symbols of the Tao gods. However, the divine fire didn't have any other effects. They were mostly used by the Tao gods as human torches. The lighting was also very good in extremely dark conditions. Kunpeng token. Through the light of the divine fire, the Xing family master clearly saw what Lu Qingru was holding. He knew that this was one of the magic artifacts that the Lu family master, Lu Fengnan, was proud of. Lu Fengnan gave you the Kunpeng token. The Xing family master laughed. Did he become muddle-headed after being in seclusion? You're just a Tao master. Even with the Kunpeng token, you can't outrun us. In his opinion, the Kunpeng token that Lu Fengnan gave away was probably for nothing. It was a magic artifact that was fused with 2% chaotic energy. It was very valuable as a collector's item. Lu Qingru, you've already lost. Then, according to the agreement, accept your punishment. The Li family master directly attacked. He didn't hold back. His right arm expanded infinitely as he stretched out, surrounding the Lu family Grand Elder like a mountain. Lu Qingru felt that he could still struggle. He activated the Kuan-Ping token, opened his wings, and flapped them fiercely, causing the seawater in front of him to boil. Affected by the resistance of the deity sea, all movements in the deity sea would slow down. Especially when the water suddenly became turbulent, Lu Qingru was sure that the other party wouldn't be able to catch him so easily. An ant trying to shake a tree, I don't know what you're talking about. However, the power of a Tao god was still displayed at this moment. The Li family master's hand was covered in the Tao god's seal and directly ignored the resistance of the seawater. He grabbed Lu Qingru like he was fishing the moon from the sea, and wrapped him in his palm. Got him. The Li family master was very proud. The other 5 gods followed and looked at Lu Qingru, who was caught in the Li family master's palm. A mere Tao master, do you dare to fight against a god? The 5 family masters sneered. So even gods work together to bully people? Do you think you deserve to be called gods? Lu Qingru's expression was cold. He calmed down, and even under the gaze of the 6 Tao gods, he didn't show any fear. This made the Li family master feel very strange. I don't know where you get your confidence from, a mere Tao master. He tightened his grip, causing Elder Lu Qingru to instantly feel a pain as if his body was about to explode. You're about to die, and you're still pretending. How laughable. Lu Qingru endured the pain and retorted, Grandmaster is right, the deity realm should be baptized. If people like you can become Tao gods, the future of the deity realm is endless and dark. You, shut up. The Li family master scolded. He wanted to crush Lu Qingru right now, but he also felt that if Lu Qingru died now, it wouldn't be enough to establish his prestige. Thus, the Li family master sneered. Lu Qingru, you lost the bet. I will execute you in front of your Lu family members in front of Lu City. Execute me. Yes, the Li family master's expression was cold. This is the result of disrespecting a god. Then I'm sorry. Lu Qingru suddenly said. What did you say? I said I'm sorry, the ones who might die are you. Then, he opened his mouth wide and directly spat out the golden talisman that the golden lamp had given him. Do you think a golden talisman can save your life? The Li family master said in a low voice. Not necessarily. At that moment, Lu Qingru laughed loudly, then threw his head back and shouted, Hurry and invite my Buddha Wang Ling. As soon as he said that, the golden talisman vibrated. Then, it exploded with a blazing light. A hand descended from the sky, blotting out the sun, and directly pierced into the spirit sea. Again, the 6 great Tao gods trembled in fear. They all felt a death omen descend on their heads. This is Ling Zhenren's hand. Everyone in the main hall of battle sect perfected lord was shocked. The next moment, a split screen appeared on the screen. It directly switched to the Wang family's small villa. At that moment, Wang Ling was bored to death, fiddling with the square fish tank in front of him. Then, he used his slender and fair fingers to pick up 6 small stones in the fish tank. Chapter 1298. This fish tank was actually one of the monk's magic artifacts, and was called the fishing law enforcement tank. It could lock onto any river that the monk had traveled to, and connect the space inside the fish tank to them. The size of the space was related to the strength of the fish tank user. The monk had predicted that the 6 great Tao gods would chase them to the divine sea of the domain of the gods, which was why he had given Wang Ling this fish tank. But the fish tank's locking range was very limited, and it was impossible for it to cover the entire divine sea. Even the monk himself couldn't do this. Given his strength, he could at most lock onto a third of the divine sea. But what the monk never expected was, in Wang Ling's hands, the fish tank space directly filled up the entire divine sea. It even overflowed on a large scale, in other words, it wasn't just the divine sea. In Wang Ling's hands, the entire domain of the gods was just the size of a goldfish tank. But to be honest, he felt that only the monk could come up with a magic artifact like the fish tank. He had suddenly gained a lot of inspiration from the monk. The monk had a lot of experience and a big brain, and knew too much strange knowledge. Wang Ling believed that his battle strength was above the monk's, but in other aspects, the monk indeed had something to learn from him. What are you going to do with them? Loopy Toad asked as it looked at Wang Ling. It could clearly feel the 6 small stones between Wang Ling's fingers trembling. Previously, the 6 great Tao gods had been clamoring about what a god was. Now, the answer was obvious. The next moment, the 6 small stones between Wang Ling's fingers were crushed to dust, elsewhere, 5,000 meters deep in the divine sea. Lu Qingru looked up at the 6 great Tao gods who had been swiftly caught by the giant hand and instantly turned to ash, and fell into deep thought. This clearly wasn't the monk's hand. When the monk had been fighting the 7 great Tao gods earlier, the heavenly hand which had pierced the Zhou family head's Tao god brain had left a deep impression on him. Is it that senior from Earth again? Lu Qingru felt that this couldn't just be described as strong anymore. He rummaged through his mind and realized that he couldn't come up with an exact adjective for the moment. The 6 great Tao gods hadn't been able to resist at all. Under this pair of heavenly hands, they were neatly pulled out of the deep sea, and were instantly crushed to a bloody pulp before they turned to ash. He hadn't even heard the cries of the 6 great Tao gods. Lu Qingru's heart shook when he saw all this. He jumped out of the sea and felt that the aura of the 6 great Tao gods had completely disappeared. He died just like that. Lu Qingru felt his scalp go numb. To crush 6 Tao gods in one go, just what kind of existence was that? In a dark world, the souls of the 6 Tao gods appeared. This was a world shrouded in a dark purple glow. There was a low pressure everywhere, causing one's spirit to feel oppressed. God, Tao god of the soul. The faces of the 6 Tao gods were deathly pale. Their hearts were pounding, and their wandering souls were trembling. They God. They of. They King God. God God. Tao God God, of them God God God, of gods of world of Tao God, it was world, of God of spirit, Tao sea. Being able to come to this world was one of the privileges of Tao gods. Here, they could sacrifice their cultivation in exchange for their lives. But they didn't know what had just happened. Everything happened too suddenly. What is the background of that senior on Earth? The 6 Tao gods didn't think they would be killed in a second. Is this everyone's first time in the god-forsaken land? The Leaf family master was shocked. Sigh, we should have listened more. The disciples of the Wang family, the Gu family, and the Lu family are all on Earth, and they must be related to that senior. It doesn't matter which family we attack, it's all for nothing. It's too late to regret. The other family masters sighed. It was too late for them to regret. In fact, if they thought about it carefully, they felt that if they had been calmer earlier, they wouldn't have encountered such a thing. The Lu family master, Lu Qingru, was just a Tao master. How dare he challenge the 6 great Tao gods? If he didn't have the life-saving golden talisman as his trump card, how could he be so confident? Master of the Xing family, it seems that you were the one who instigated this from the beginning. At this moment, the other family masters focused their attention on the divine soul of the Xing family master. Their eyes were filled with anger, and they were trembling with anger. Everyone, please calm down. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. The Xing family master couldn't resist the anger of the crowd, so he could only admit defeat. I think we should discuss how to go back. How else can we go back? The Leaf family master smiled bitterly. He looked at an ancient black altar in front of him. The entire altar was square, and it was engraved with obscure ancient Tao patterns. It exuded a mysterious aura. Do you see it? This should be the altar in the God-forsaken land recorded in the ancient books, said the Leaf family master. He explained the method of resurrection based on what he knew. In the middle of the altar is the God-forsaken pillar. Touch it and sacrifice your cultivation, and you can go back. Sacrifice cultivation. But how much do we have to sacrifice? The other family masters all asked. According to the ancient books, everyone's situation is different. It needs to be evaluated based on the cause of death and various aspects. I heard that if you reflect on yourself, you can greatly reduce the loss of cultivation. If you don't have any regrets, you can only sacrifice most of your cultivation. At this point, the other 5 gods understood what the Lee clan master meant. The cause of death didn't need to be explained. They were all killed by someone from beyond the heavens. They were killed on the spot. They didn't even feel much pain before they were gone. This was a destructive and overwhelming power. Even now, the 6 Tao gods were still trembling as they thought about it. As for repentance, at this moment, they couldn't help but think of what Lu Qingru said to them when he summoned the golden talisman. Now it seems that what the great clan elder of the Lu clan said is not unreasonable. At this moment, the Wu family Tao ancestor sighed. The 6 of us called ourselves gods, but we were squashed to death by that senior from Earth like ants. After saying this, the Wu family Tao ancestor's eyes were filled with tears. He looked truly regretful. It was as if he had never been in such pain before. Then, he took a step forward and reached out to touch the God-forsaken pillar. Everyone, let me go first. I hope my repentance can move the God-forsaken pillar. About 10 seconds later, the God-forsaken pillar trembled slightly. At the same time, an ethereal voice rang out. You will be punished with 100 lives of cultivation to return to the world. This was the voice of the God-forsaken pillar's pillar spirit. 100 lives, the Wu family master's heart trembled. He was not satisfied with the verdict. I have clearly repented. The pillar spirit was furious. Shut up. You actor. Chapter 1299. As expected of a master, he can even switch to a place like this. In Battle Sect, the image projected by the golden lamp switched to the forsaken land of the gods. Everyone stared at the souls of the 6 great Tao gods and was once again shocked by the monk's methods. The monk smiled slightly. When I smashed the Tao gods with my head earlier, I took advantage of the fact that they were unconscious to use the light blessing spell on their retinas. That's why I was able to capture this scene. By using the light blessing spell flexibly, the monk could create a certain connection with the objects that had been blessed. Thus, the monk could now observe the forsaken land of the gods from 6 different perspectives. The perspective that everyone in Battle Sect was looking at now was that of the head of the Wu family. The monk had in fact always had a wish, and that was to make a historical documentary about the rise and fall of the domain of the gods. It would serve as a warning to cultivators on Earth, and thus better promote cultivation culture. Using the light blessing spell to invade the retinas of these Tao gods was also for this purpose. I still don't understand, why don't the Tao gods have any life-saving magic treasures? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked at that moment. Even he had the soul suppression ring which Wang Ling had given him. As long as he was seriously injured, he could resurrect without limit. Because the person who killed them was Ling Jinren, so their life-saving magic treasures were useless, the monk said. They died at the speed of light under the power of Ling Jinren's fingers, so fast that they didn't even have time to react. Even their life-saving magic treasures were probably still in a daze. As expected of Shifu. Jua exclaimed. Was this what it meant by dying fast enough and the life-saving magic treasures couldn't react in time? When a normal cultivator dies, their souls generally won't be damaged, and life-saving magic treasures are mostly based on this resurrection mechanism. By replicating incomplete cells, they can reshape a physical body for a soul that has lost a physical body to achieve resurrection. The monk said, but Ling Zhenren's finger power was so fierce that the 6 great Tao gods were directly annihilated. It's only because these people are at the Tao god realm. If it was anyone else, then that person would have no hope since a long time ago. Then what on earth is this forsaken land of the gods? You can think of it as a VIP mourning hall that Tao ancestor Wang specially created back then. As long as they reach the Tao god realm, their souls can be backed up in the forsaken land of the gods. In other words, Shifu has already crushed their original souls. That's it. The monk nodded. Tyrant remembered that he had gone to the forsaken land of the gods to find out if Tao ancestor Wang was still alive. But he wasn't killed by someone else. Instead, he had transcended himself. However, after entering the forsaken land of the gods, he was greatly disappointed. There were no clues about Tao ancestor Wang here. The most troublesome thing was the pillar spirit in the forsaken land of the gods. If one were to use the monk's words to evaluate it, this pillar spirit was an emotionless fool. In other words, it would be extremely difficult for the 6 great Tao gods to bargain with the abandoned pillar of gods. Tyrant had already experienced it once. However, his cultivation was profound, and he was the one who had transcended himself. Therefore, the deduction of cultivation was not much. There were only 10 lifetimes in total. Therefore, the monk's combat strength at his peak was actually 3,920 lifetimes of cultivation. What was the concept of 10 lifetimes of cultivation? According to the current average realm data of cultivators on Earth. The life of a cultivator. The most talented could cultivate to itinerant immortal or true immortal level in just 1 lifetime. But such cultivators were in the minority, less than 1% of the global population. On average, a cultivator could cultivate up to the soul formation stage in 1 lifetime. That was about the same level as a grenade-throwing senior immortal who didn't eat heavenly Tao broccoli. So 10 lifetimes of cultivation was equivalent to 10 grenade-throwing senior immortals who didn't eat heavenly Tao broccoli. Of course, this was the monk's conservative estimate of the loss of cultivation. After all, the monk himself was a rare talent. His actual loss was definitely much greater than it looked on paper. Of course, the monk wouldn't say this to his face. He was mainly afraid of stabbing grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart. In the forsaken land of the gods, Patriarch Wu was punished with 100 lifetimes of cultivation for his clumsy and failed acting. But this wasn't the final judgment, because he hadn't paid his cultivation yet. So there was still room for negotiation. Patriarch Wu couldn't afford to lose 100 lifetimes of cultivation at all, even if he lost half of it. 50 lifetimes would be easier to accept than 100 lifetimes. Lords and lords, please go ahead. I'll go to the side and repent for a while more. Patriarch Wu was very helpless, and could only wave his sleeves as he continued to weep on the side. Then, he knelt on the ground and wept bitterly, as if he was at a funeral. He knelt down with the utmost sincerity. This time, he really looked like he was repenting, and was very sad. No amount of hypocrisy would work in front of the pillar spirit of the forsaken pillar of the gods. After seeing Patriarch Wu's failure, the remaining families also started to formulate their own methods. Thus, Patriarch Li stepped forward. He took the conciliatory route. Lord Pillar Spirit, this humble servant sincerely repents and admits his mistake. I hope that Lord Pillar Spirit can show mercy and reduce the punishment. If this humble servant has the opportunity to come to the forsaken land of the gods again, I can bring Lord some gifts to dispel your loneliness in the forsaken land of the gods in China. After saying that, Patriarch Li bowed to the forsaken pillar of the gods and then touched it with his hand. The pillar spirit finally gave the verdict. You may return to the world with 99 lifetimes of cultivation. The conciliatory route seemed to work. But this reduction was a little too little. This is only 1 lifetime, I might as well not reduce it. Patriarch Li grumbled as he let go of his hand with a face full of disappointment. Pillar Spirit, then I shall continue to punish you with 100 lifetimes of cultivation. Patriarch Li hurriedly covered his mouth, wanting to cry but no tears came out. Patriarch Xiao was a neat freak. Before he touched the forsaken pillar of the gods, he purposely wiped the inside and outside of the forsaken pillar of the gods to show his sincerity. Lord Pillar Spirit, you see, how many years has it been since someone touched your body? You have accumulated too much. At this point, Patriarch Xiao realized that his words might be ambiguous, so he hurriedly added, Lord Pillar Spirit, please don't misunderstand, I am referring to the accumulated dust. You have accumulated a little too much dust. I hope Lord Pillar Spirit can show mercy. If I come here again, I will definitely wipe your body. Pillar Spirit, you shall be punished with 80 lifetimes of cultivation. This sentence made Patriarch Xiao heave a sigh of relief. With the experience of Patriarch Li, he did not dare to retort, nor did he continue to bargain. He only hurriedly nodded. I am willing to accept my punishment. Then, the forsaken pillar of the gods released a ray of light that hit Patriarch Xiao. Immediately after, Patriarch Xiao's divine soul disappeared on the spot. His soul was released, and the forsaken pillar of the gods helped Patriarch Xiao reconstruct his body as a Tao god. The remaining 5 Tao gods were dumbfounded. They did not expect Patriarch Xiao to accept the 80 lifetimes of cultivation punishment so easily. This old Xiao, he really slipped away fast. This is 80 lifetimes. I will not leave until the price is below 50 lifetimes. The voices of several patriarchs could be heard in the forsaken land of the gods. At this time, Patriarch Wu, who was the first to be punished with 100 lifetimes, seemed to be inspired by Patriarch Xiao. He hurriedly ran over and kneeled to wipe the divine pillar's body. In the end, the pillar spirit became flustered and exasperated. It's you acting bastard again, my skin is about to go bald. 150 lifetimes. 150 lifetimes. You might as well arrange for me to be reincarnated. Patriarch Wu couldn't take it anymore. Do you want to be reincarnated? No problem, the forsaken pillar spirit's voice was calm. Patriarch Wu knelt down again and kowtowed frantically to the pillar spirit. Lord Pillar Spirit. I was wrong. I was really wrong. At that moment, in battle sect's true venerated Great Hall, grenade-throwing senior immortal was suddenly a little curious. Can the pillar spirit really help him directly reincarnate? Yes. Monk nodded. If he reincarnates, who will he be reincarnated into? Everyone was curious. He knelt 3 times just now, maybe he will become Wu 3. Audiobooks words were astonishing. Everyone. Chapter 1300. Patriarch Xiao had given up his 80 lifetimes of cultivation to be liberated from the forsaken land of the gods. The first thing he did was to personally prepare a gift and pay a visit to apologize to the Lu family. He had been incited to begin with, and had believed Patriarch Xing's words, which was why he had acted unwisely. It wasn't easy for him to put down his pride and personally apologize in front of all the Lu family members and citizens of Lu City. Patriarch Lu wasn't a petty person, and naturally sent Lu Qingru to accept the apology. After delivering the gift and apologizing, Patriarch Xiao stood at the gate of Lu City for a long time and didn't leave. Lu Qingru could roughly guess what Patriarch Xiao was thinking. Lord of the Zhao family, do you want to ask me about that senior on earth? Zhao Ligang abruptly raised his head and bowed. That's right. May I know? Lord of the Zhao family is a Tao god, and should be able to sense that the senior has set up a restriction to block the tracking. Therefore, I'm not very clear about the information regarding that senior. Lu Qingru smiled. But my lord's eldest daughter, Lu Qingyi, is studying with this senior. If my lord wants to know more about him, it'll depend on your own ability. Thank you for your guidance. Patriarch Zhao bowed again. It had to be said that Patriarch Zhao's train of thought was actually very clear. This time, he was truly clear-headed, and understood that there was always someone better out there. When he was in the forsaken land of the gods, he had already thought things through. Rather than being entangled in bargaining with the forsaken pillar of the gods, rather than haggling with the forsaken pillar of the gods, it was more important to come out earlier and make friends with that senior on earth. Given that senior's divine powers, if he could form a relationship with him, wouldn't he get whatever he wanted in the future? Compared to that, 80 lifetimes of cultivation really wasn't much. Thus, after leaving the forsaken land of the gods, Patriarch Zhao began to make plans to send his own son to study on Earth. Apart from that, he was also thinking about how to make friends with Wang Ling. Although he currently couldn't figure out Wang Ling's name or where he lived, he could still figure out Lu Qingyi's whereabouts. Finding Lu Qingyi first was the first step in the whole plan. In the Zhao family's forbidden area, Zhao Ganglai summoned his eldest son, Zhao Qingxian. Zhao Qingxian was a little chubby, and was actually far weaker than Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi. If one were to describe him in one sentence, he would be the legendary foolish son of a landlord. The head of the Zhao family still had a lot of worries about sending Zhao Qingxian out. However, he thought that if he followed that senior on Earth, his disappointing son's interests would also improve. Before he left, the Zhao clan's clan leader gave him many instructions. After you get to Earth, first find Lu Qingyi according to the low value I gave you. Remember, you must be polite. Understand? Lu Qingyi. Zhao Qingxian scratched his head. Isn't that the eldest daughter of the Lu family? With that, Zhao Qingxian stretched out his hand. Give it to me. What is it? The head of the Zhao family was puzzled. Betrothal gifts. I've also taken a fancy to the Lu family's eldest daughter for a long time. Zhao Qingxian said confidently. Who told you to go down to the lower realm to place the betrothal gifts? I want you to get clues about that senior on Earth from Lu Qingyi, and then think of a way to befriend him. Do you hear me? My father is a Tao god. Why should I befriend someone on Earth? Zhao Qingxian was puzzled. In fact, he didn't care about the previous battle with the head of the Zhao family at all. And Zhao Ganglai wasn't going to tell him. If he told his own son that his father had just been crushed to death by that senior on Earth, he couldn't bring himself to say that at all. In any case, you must remember what I told you. Be polite. Get close to Lu Qingyi, and then get in touch with that senior on Earth. As for how to deal with it, it's up to you. What about the money? Even if you befriend him, you still have to spend money. After you go down to the lower realm, I'll prepare it for you. All right. I'll pack my things and set off right away. Zhao Qingxian nodded, then bowed to Zhao Ganglai. Then I'll take my leave first. Get lost. Zhao Ganglai snorted. For some reason, he felt a little worried, leaving the family's forbidden area. Zhao Qingxian breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, he had long had thoughts about Lu Qingyi. Coming to Earth personally this time was really a great opportunity. Elsewhere, Battle's sect decided to stop paying attention to the domain of the gods. There were currently 5 Tao gods trapped in the forsaken land of the gods. Although everyone wanted to know what was going to happen next, there were more important things to do at the moment. Guoping had been ordered to come here as Divine Tao Star's diplomatic envoy to discuss a plan to upgrade Earth. Everyone was of one mind when it came to the time. This was because it had to be carried out as soon as possible. Thus, it was directly set for Tuesday, December 1st. The problem was the location. This was a massive attack on Earth by the power of chaos condensed from the spirits of all the planets in the Milky Way. Guoping had given it an easy-to-understand name, Chaos Tribulation Cannon. If Earth could survive this attack, it would be considered a success. But it was obvious that it would be safer to carry it out in a place with few people. It was difficult for Earth cultivators to withstand the pressure of the power of chaos, and even the radiation could harm innocent people. Thus, the location of the primer for the monk's chaos egg became a problem. What about the boundless sea? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked. There's no one here, but there are a lot of marine creatures at the bottom of the sea. The power of the radiation can reach deep into the sea, and even if we successfully transcend the tribulation, I'm afraid there will be a terrifying scene of corpses floating for thousands of miles. Guo Ping shook his head. He then turned his gaze to the girl in the Buddha's golden lotus. Miss Lotus Sun, what do you think? To put it bluntly, Earth's upgrade was all because of Lotus Sunday. Guo Ping very much wanted to hear this Miss Sun's opinion. Can I say it too? Lotus Sun was a little surprised. From the very beginning, the girl had come with a learning attitude, and everyone present had a higher realm than her. Of course. Ling Jinren specially planned this for this, so of course you can express your opinion, said Guo Ping. Hearing this, Lotus Sun's little face turned red, and she directly turned into a steam girl. How about the dead desert? Finally, she voiced her opinion. She felt that this was a very logical answer. But for some reason, no one present said it. As soon as she said it, everyone nodded. Good idea. The dead desert is desolate and uninhabited. Back then, the heavenly E-bomb experiment was also carried out there. Guo Ping nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. True, venerated one. Your Excellency Realm King, let's choose this place. At that moment, the monk stood up and looked at Senior Immortal Dayulia and Miss Awan. Everyone else also stood up. As expected of Miss Lotus Sun's idea. This subject agrees. This subject agrees. This subject also agrees. And so, the choice of the location was decided. Everyone voted for it. But the girl somehow felt like she was being played. At that moment, the monk couldn't help laughing. He thought that Guo Ping was a real shrewd person. Actually, everyone present was a cultivator with profound cultivation and a certain level of vision. How could they be so conflicted about choosing a location? So all of this was really just a show. Everyone could see that after this incident was over, Chen Chongqing's expression changed. The girl would probably become one of the core members here. Letting Lotus Sun express her opinion was also a way for the girl to integrate into the environment as quickly as possible. Even if she was at the foundation establishment stage. What was there to feel inferior about? Behind you. But there was still Ling Jinren. Chapter 1301. The meeting regarding the Earth's upgrade plan for December 1st ended amidst the cheerful laughter of the members of the Battle Sect. Seniors, fellow Taoists of the Battle Sect, please stay. I will report this matter to my superiors as soon as possible and make appropriate arrangements. Please rest assured. In front of Battle Sect's mountain gate, Guo Ping turned around and bowed to everyone. Thank you, Academician Guo. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal returned the salute. Then, everyone watched as Guo Ping steered a small immortal boat into the distance, transforming into a streak of light. The energy source for this small immortal boat was Wang Ling's hair, which saved energy and reduced emissions, and was super environmentally friendly. After confirming the location, the next step of the monk, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Miss Awan's plan was to set up a primer in the Dead Bone Desert. They had to think of a way to set up a device that would guide the primal chaos tribulation transcendence cannon to the chaos egg. This device had already been created by Monk in World 3909. He drew the blueprints in 3906. Then, he used another life to verify whether his idea was feasible or not. In the end, the research and development of the device was completed in World 3909. However, it was slightly more complicated to set it up. Because the devices were all spare parts, he needed manpower. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Miss Ah-1 just so happened to be able to help him. The rest were Fong Xing, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, Immortal Jin Yuan, and a few juniors from the domain of the gods. They were divided into two groups. One wave was responsible for protecting the battle sect. The other group was in charge of guarding the area around the Undead Bone Desert and drawing it out of the barrier, to ensure that on the day of Earth's upgrade, no one slipped through the net and entered the core area that was about to be hit by the Chaos Tribulation Transcendence Cannon. Before setting up the equipment, the monk gave him a controller. "Master, this is the external control device for the Golden Buddha Lotus." The monk smiled and said, "This penniless monk noticed that you have been holding the Golden Lotus. You look rather tired." A few minutes later, Death Heavenly Tao used the great sacrificial art to burn the handle till Lotus Sunday. Lotus Sun had obtained the ability to control the Golden Lotus. It was like piloting a small aircraft. It was very interesting. Moreover, the controller also had an invisibility mode, which could make the entire Buddha Golden Lotus disappear into thin air. Senior Golden Lamp is truly a genius. Lotus Sun marveled at the monk's strength. She quickly mastered the controls and piloted the Buddha Lotus to complete all kinds of difficult flying maneuvers. It's so fun. Lotus Sun didn't have this kind of fun often. As the future successor of the group, Lotus Sun was followed almost everywhere by a group of bodyguards. The Huagua Water Curtain group would hand over matters such as setting up the aircraft to specialized personnel. Lotus Sun usually couldn't touch the joystick. When she was tired, she drove the Buddha Golden Lotus to a stop in front of Audiobook. "Senior Joie, can I go somewhere?" For safety's sake, junior sister Lotus Sun shouldn't run around on your own. "If you want to go somewhere, Senior and Senior Death Heavenly Tao will accompany you," Audiobook replied with a nod. "I want to go back to the hospital and see Grandpa," Lotus Sun said. "It's only human nature." Audiobook nodded. "But Mr. Sun doesn't know about Shifu, so I hope that junior sister Lotus Sun will be careful when she meets him." "Don't worry, Senior Joie." Lotus Sun agreed with a wide smile. At the first military medical hospital, the pitiful old man's son still hadn't given up on his plan to organize an expert consultation to save his granddaughter. Audiobook and the others rushed to the hospital to see old man's son again. Lotus Sun, who was behind Audiobook in the Buddha Golden Lotus, could clearly feel that her grandfather had aged a lot. Even the hair at his temples had turned even paler. Audiobook also saw this scene and was very puzzled, so he asked Lotus Sun in a very low voice in the spiritual space, "Junior sister Lotus Sun, I have something to ask, but I don't know if I should ask." "Senior, please speak." "As far as I know, Mr. Sun should be wearing a wig. Why has the wig also turned white?" "Grandpa is wearing a bionic black technology wig, which can automatically adjust the color of his hair according to his mood," Lotus Sun answered truthfully. Audiobook was instantly enlightened. It had to be said that old man Sun's current state was indeed a little pitiful. He didn't know that the girl's soul had already been sealed in the Buddha Golden Lotus. "Mr. Sun." In the ward, Audiobook stepped forward to comfort old man Sunday. "No need to comfort me. It's been hard on you all these days." Old man Sun sighed. "It's my granddaughter's good fortune to have a large group of friends like you care about her." "Oh, that's right, why didn't that Master Jean Deng come?" "I heard that he came to the hospital first and used his magic power to seal my granddaughter's body so that it wouldn't be destroyed. I should be thanking him. This is just a stalling tactic. He's leaving for now because he's still looking for a way to save junior sister Lotus Sunday," Audiobook answered truthfully. He looked at the haggard old man in front of him. He thought of another question that he had always wanted to ask old man Sun in person. It was just that he didn't know if it was the right time to bring it up. So he was still hesitating. "Director Joie, if you have anything to say, just say it." Sunny Yuan seemed to have read Audiobook's mind. Now that things had come to this, he already regarded Audiobook as one of his own. I want to ask Mr. Sun, who on earth was that fortune teller who told Miss Sun's fortune back then? It's not that I don't want to say it, it's that I don't remember. Old Man Sun himself also felt that this was very strange. He frowned. This person seems to be in my mind all this time, but also not. Audiobook frowned slightly. Sure enough. Everything was as Shifu had described. Earlier, Shifu had used the king's eye to look at the appearance of the fortune teller in Old Man Sun's memory, but it had been dark. That memory had obviously been erased by someone else first. And this culprit was probably another expert hiding on Earth. Furthermore, it was very likely that he was as strong as Golden Lamp. For a moment, the scene fell into a brief silence. Lotus Sun drove the golden Buddha lotus to a steady stop behind Old Man Sun, all sorts of feelings welling up in her heart. Just then, the familiar and heavy clanking of chains came from the corridor again. The ancient gold men are here again. Audiobook was alarmed and instantly became extremely vigilant. Senior Death Heavenly Tao, what on earth is going on? Senior Sister Lotus Sun's soul has been sealed in the golden Buddha lotus by Master, so they shouldn't be able to locate it anymore. Audiobook was puzzled. Death Heavenly Tao quickly made a judgment. They're not after the soul. Audiobook was puzzled. What do you mean? Death Heavenly Tao frowned. They're after the body. Audiobook was shocked. Isn't Heavenly Tao supposed to have no desires? Why are you still lusting after my junior sister Lotus Sun's body? Chapter 1302. Sunny Yuan didn't know what on earth was going on. He couldn't see the ancient golden man, nor could he see the hook lock. He just sensed that Audiobook and the young man in overalls seemed unusually nervous. Mr. Sun, an unknown creature has come to steal Miss Sun's body. Audiobook didn't tell Sunny Yuan about Heavenly Tao, but used the concept of unknown creature to explain. Unknown creature. Sunny Yuan was stupefied. As expected, his granddaughter's charm was extraordinary. Nowadays, whether they were human or not, they actually lusted after their bodies. This was simply outrageous. Director Zhua, what should I do? He immediately stepped forward to protect Lotus Sun's body. A true immortal body couldn't contend with the ancient golden man, and it would be pointless to charge forward. When the familiar hook lock entered through the door, Death Heavenly Tao almost instinctively took out the death book and clamped it shut. But contrary to his expectations, this time, the death book didn't have the slightest effect. It didn't trigger the instant death mechanism of the death book. What's going on? Audiobook was astonished. There's only one possibility. Death Heavenly Tao frowned. The death book wouldn't fail for no reason. If it didn't have the slightest effect, that could only mean one thing. The ancient golden man outside the door might be of the same bloodline as him. In other words, this might be his ancestor. Although it was a defective product that Tao ancestor Wang had abandoned, it was undoubtedly of the same origin as him. The current Heavenly Tao Golden Man was the final product of countless failed versions of the little golden man that Tao ancestor Wang had created in the unspeakable land. As for why it wanted Lotus Sun's body, Death Heavenly Tao thought of one possibility. The ancient Heavenly Tao had tried to steal Lotus Sun's soul earlier for no other reason than to use her identity as a son of the void to break the seal of the unspeakable land. But now, Lotus Sun's soul was already protected by the Buddha Golden Lotus. Since it couldn't obtain the soul, seizing the body was a secondary option. Using a body and a spell to duplicate the soul, to recreate a new Lotus Sun. This was clearly a much more complicated operation. But the other party was after all an ancient Heavenly Tao, and it wouldn't be difficult for it to carry out this plan. Recreate a new me. Hearing Death Heavenly Tao's guess, the girl in the golden lotus fell silent. Is there really such a thing after reconstructing the soul? There is, but this operation is very disgusting, isn't it? Death Heavenly Tao said, these primordial gold men are all defective goods. They might not be able to achieve a 100% restoration, which means that if they really create another Miss Sun's soul, her personality might be very different from the original body. Besides, and what, once the new soul is formed, the old one will disappear. That won't do. Jua exclaimed. Of course we can't let that happen. Death Heavenly Tao said. If Lotus Sun's body was snatched away in broad daylight, he was afraid that this was the end of his position as the Heavenly Law emissary. When that time came, it wouldn't be as simple as Jinka holding him by the neck and denouncing him. Lotus Sun was very anxious. Senior. What do we do now? Death Heavenly Tao said, don't panic. This body had been blessed by a master. Their hooks can reach in, but it might not work. As he spoke, he did his best to block the hook's attack. This time, the ancient gold man had clearly come prepared. Not only had he invited an ancestor of the same origin as him, but he had also brought quite a number of people with him. The golden hooks pierced through the walls of the intensive care unit. Since the death note was useless, Death Heavenly Tao could only engage in a melee fight. One Ola, one chain, to flatten these hooks. Chua tried to summon, predict, for battle. Since the end of the last war with the Foundation, Wang Ling had already given this advance sword to Chua as his personal sword. Right now, it was still undergoing maintenance at Fatty Luo's hardware store. But after all, he had already signed a new contract with Chua, so if he wanted to use it, he just had to say, sword, come. However, something unexpected happened again. Chua stretched out his hand repeatedly. From time to time, he would raise his hands above his head, and from time to time, he would spread his arms to the left and right like a rock spreading its wings. He thought that his summoning posture was wrong, so he changed the posture of sword come. In the end, nothing happened. Senior Death Heavenly Tao, why can't I summon my sword? Is my posture wrong? Chua asked in the spiritual space. Obviously not. This group of ancient gold men had come prepared. I'm afraid that some kind of barrier has already been set up in the hospital to block your summoning signal. Death Heavenly Tao was sweating at his temples. This wave of ancient gold men was coming at him aggressively, and he felt like he couldn't hold on for much longer. Sunny Yuan didn't know what on earth Chua and that young man in overalls were doing. In his eyes, the two of them were having a battle of wits and courage with the air. It looked a little silly. But he was well aware that something big was definitely happening now. He couldn't see the ancient gold men. But as a true immortal, he could still smell the dangerous scent. Golden Jade Sky-Shocking Rod. Old Man Sun took out his ancestral magic weapon. But very quickly, he noticed something unusual. For some reason, he felt that something wasn't right with his Golden Jade Sky-Shocking Rod. When he touched it, it felt like it had lost its spirit energy. I never thought they would use such a trick. Death Heavenly Tao was utterly astonished. This was a classic weapon spirit hibernating state. Not only could the barrier set up by this batch of ancient gold men effectively block the summoning signal for magic weapons, it could also cause all the weapon spirits within its range to fall into a deep sleep. This was the legendary weapon spirit hibernating state. In this state, the magic weapon would lose the power of the weapon spirit, and its power would be greatly reduced. It would also enter a vulnerable state. Forcibly using a magic weapon while the weapon spirit was in hibernation could very well destroy the entire weapon. What should we do? Death Heavenly Tao felt that the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous. Not only couldn't Chua's sword be summoned, all the magic weapons had lost their effectiveness, and it would be very difficult to break out. He could no longer afford to be distracted by the dozen or so ancient golden men's hooks and shackles. Although he could see these gold men, they clearly weren't strong enough. Even activating 33 small streams of vital energy still wasn't enough. Senior. Shifu has already sensed the situation here. But we can't do anything now. We have to think of a way to lure these gold men out. Audra said at that moment. He had heard Wang Ling's telepathic message. This hospital wasn't like the spirit sea in the domain of the gods, it was a densely populated area, and there were a lot of doctors and patients inside. If they directly attacked here, the entire building might directly collapse, so they had to think of a way to break out first. What should we do, Senior? Audra was also anxious. If this went on, they would soon be overrun. Some of the ancient gold men had already poked their heads out of the walls, intending to directly rush forward and snatch it. At that moment, the girl in the golden lotus made a shocking decision. Lotus Sun, Senior Death Heavenly Tao. Use my body to fight your way out. Death Heavenly Tao, this, Lotus Sun, it's fine. It's better than letting them snatch it away. Given the current crisis, they couldn't care less. The girl's suggestion was indeed a good idea. Audra strode forward and opened the door of the medical cabin. Sunny Yuan was stupefied. Director Zhua, the situation is critical. I'll explain to Mr. Sun later. Sorry for the offense, junior sister Lotus Sun. Audra used the hardening spell on Lotus Sun's body to stiffen. Ha! Right after that, he grabbed the girl's feet and swung them like a great sword at the ancient gold men who were about to break through the walls of the ward and snatch the body. After being strengthened by the monk's illumination spell, the girl's body was so powerful that it left people speechless. The head of Lotus Sun's body collided with the head of the ancient gold man. Boom! The ancient gold man who was about to break through was smashed to pieces like a watermelon on the spot. Junior sister Lotus Sun. You're too strong. Audra was stunned. As long as it can be of use, inside the golden lotus, Lotus Sun looked at the abnormally stupid scene in front of her with complicated emotions. Buzz, at that moment, powerful spirit power flowed through the girl's body from head to toe. The golden light of Buddha that was added to the girl's body by the light consecration spell shone through the blue and white striped hospital gown. For a moment, the ancient gold men stopped what they were doing and fell into a daze. They would never have thought that there would be such a thing. Chance! Death Heavenly Tao roared at that moment. Taking the girl's body from Audra, he gripped her foot with one hand and used it as a sword hilt, and officially began his counterattack. In the end, he successfully fought his way out of the hospital. Outside the hospital, the ancient gold men were still relentlessly chasing the girl's body like a horde of zombies out of control as they poured out of the hospital in an endless stream. Audra was amazed by the number of gold men. There were actually over 100 of them. As expected, this was a premeditated operation. Shifu, you can clear the field now. Audra shouted at that moment. Outside the hospital, Wang Ling had been waiting for a long time. When he saw these crazy ancient gold men rush out of the hospital, he straightaway aimed his king's eye at the sky. In just an instant, dark clouds shrouded the sky. Like a giant dragon, a giant waterfall instantly descended and exploded on the spot. It swept out in all directions. Over 100 crazy ancient gold men were cleared out in one go. Chapter 1303. November 29th, Sunday. Songhai First Military Medical Hospital. On that day, everyone felt as if they had intermittent amnesia. The lightning of the heavenly punishment thunder summoned by the king's eye also contained the effect of the 50% great amnesia technique. Because of this, those who had witnessed Death Heavenly Tao and Audra fight his way out of the hospital with a girl's body in his hand. They had all lost their memories of this period. Of course, the lightning might not reach everyone. There were always people in blind spots, places where the lightning couldn't reach. In this situation, Audiobook and Death Heavenly Tao could only split up again. Physical amnesia was performed on those whose memories had not been erased. Audiobook and Death Heavenly Tao reacted swiftly. The last person to be subjected to the physical amnesia spell was Old Man Sun. When Old Man Sun opened his eyes in a daze, there was an obvious panic on his face. Sneak attack. Someone ambushed me. Old Man Sun exclaimed, but everything in front of him was calm as usual. Lotus Sun's body was still lying quietly in the medical pod. As for him, he was still holding his granddaughter's hand tightly, feeling the warmth from her palm. Mr. Sun, don't panic, everything is normal. Audiobook stood on the side and comforted him. He looked at the red mark on the back of Sun Yuan's neck and tried to remain calm. Senior, aren't you a little too heavy-handed? Audiobook asked in the spiritual space. Death Heavenly Tao, there's nothing I can do. Mr. Sun was the last to be judged, and it's been a long time. I can't guarantee the effects of the physical amnesia technique. So to be on the safe side, I had to hit harder. Audiobook and Lotus Sun, what happened to me just now? Old Man Sun still felt like his memory was a little out of sync. And the key was that his head was hurting. It was as if he had been struck by 1,000,000 tons of explosive force. It's nothing. Mr. Sun was holding junior sister Lotus Sun's hand the whole time just now, and it seems that he's been too stressed out and upset recently, so he accidentally fell asleep. Audiobook said nonsense with a straight face. So I fell asleep, Old Man Sun smiled bitterly. I've made a fool of myself in front of you. What are you saying, Old Man Sun? Audiobook said, excuse me, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Old Man Sun shook his head. It's not particularly uncomfortable. It's just that when I was taking a nap, I seem to have had a very strange dream. Audiobook, a strange dream? Elder Sun, I dreamed that my neck felt like it was being run over by a bulldozer. Lotus Sun, Audiobook and Death Heavenly Tao. After the ancient Gold Man's attack on Lotus Sun's body, the Gold Man's body had already been destroyed. Audiobook swiftly got in touch with Battle Sect and discussed with Old Man Sun the issue of transferring the body. As long as it was beneficial to protecting his granddaughter, Old Man Sun would naturally not refuse. What's more, Huagua Water Curtain Group and Battle Sect were already strategic partners. With Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch standing guard over Battle Sect, Lotus Sun's body would definitely be safe there. In addition, Miss Bai Qiao was here. Under such heavy protection, it was impossible for the ancient gold man to attack the Battle Sect. Furthermore, the number of ancient gold men that came from the unspeakable place was already very limited. He had already cleared more than 100 of them with one click. It was impossible for them to gather so many people in such a short time. Of course, regarding the body-snatching incident in the hospital just now, Wang Ling somehow felt that something wasn't right. What is Ling Jinren thinking? Survival Heavenly Tao leisurely drew the death substitute talisman. Even though Lotus Sun's soul was already protected by the Golden Lotus, he still didn't stop what he was doing. It was better to be safe than sorry. What if the Golden Lotus was accidentally destroyed? Then this death substitute talisman was in fact an insurance policy. It was just that he didn't have to draw it as hastily as he had at the beginning. At that moment, Wang Ling was indeed thinking about the inside of the hospital. They had suddenly appeared. Like the zombies in the movie Train to Busan, those ancient gold men had appeared in a frenzy. He felt that this operation might not be as simple as it seemed. Do you suspect that someone is behind this? Loopy Toad asked as it handed the talisman to Survival Heavenly Tao. It didn't have the ability to read Wang Ling's mind. But in any case, it had lived with Wang Ling for so long. Loopy Toad could guess what this man was thinking with just a tacit understanding. Seeing that Wang Ling didn't deny it, Survival Heavenly Dao was quite surprised. "Brother Dog, you're amazing, you can even guess this. You flatter me." Loopy Toad was very modest. In fact, when Survival Heavenly Dao said this, it was actually very sorrowful in its heart. It wasn't easy to be Heavenly Dao these days. Also, worse than a dog, as Loopy Toad said, Wang Ling did indeed have a suspect. But he didn't have any direct evidence. Even if he wanted to denounce the other party, he had to have a good reason to make the other party speechless before taking action. Wang Ling currently had two suspects. The first was the Lord of the Void. The Lord of the Void had always wanted Lotus Sun to become a citizen of the Void and return to it. Furthermore, he had made a bold prophecy earlier. He had said that no matter what the final outcome was, Lotus Sun would return to the world of the Void. Hence, the Lord of the Void had a motive to seize Lotus Sun's body. Furthermore, given the Lord of the Void's ability, while he couldn't completely break the seal on the unspeakable land, it shouldn't be difficult for him to tear a small hole. He could perfectly use the ancient gold men who had escaped to continue looking for the Son of the Void. The second suspect Wang Ling had. That was the fortune teller who had predicted the yin and yang death calamity hexagram at the beginning. But this person's identity was a mystery. Even Wang Ling hadn't come to a clear conclusion yet. Wang Ling even suspected this person might be Dao ancestor Wang. At that moment, in the world of the Void, the Lord of the Void, who had been sound asleep, sneezed violently. Someone must be talking about the Great Lord behind his back again. By the way, did the Great Lord really tear open the seal on the unspeakable land? The voice of a hollow came from the side. The Lord of the Void sank into a long silence at this question. He was caught in a dilemma. If the answer was no, this seemed to affect His Majesty to a certain extent. After all, the Great Lord of the Void was supposed to be omnipotent. But if the answer was yes, his life might be in danger. The most important thing was that he didn't have the ability to break the seal on the unspeakable land to begin with. The Lord of the Void trembled in fear at Wang Ling's random act of slandering him. So after considering it, in the end, the Lord of the Void chose to live. Of course, it wasn't this king. Some of the hollow spirits couldn't help feeling a little disappointed when they heard this. Some of them were curious, just who was it that broke the seal? It was an accident that no one expected. The Lord of the Void's indifferent reply came from the world of the Void. Chapter 1304. With Old Man Sun's permission, Odd Jua and Death Heavenly Dao worked together to carry out the plan to transfer Lotus Sun's body. The entire plan was divided into two parts. First, create a fake body and place it in the medical cabin to fool people. Second, move the girl's real body to Battle Sect, and hand it over to Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Immortal Jin Yuan to watch it 24 hours a day. All the surveillance equipment in the ICU would be turned off while the body was being transferred. Odd Jua and Death Heavenly Dao didn't have to wait for long before a golden light fell from the sky, and a huge cardboard box was accurately delivered to them. Senior Jua, what's this golden light? The girl was puzzled. This is Lord Ma. It turned out to be a toilet in Shifu's bedroom that was enlightened by Shifu. He's very strong. The Wang family's small villa's courier. Student Wang Ling is really amazing. Lotus Sun was suddenly enlightened. After getting to know Wang Ling better, she had thought that no matter what she saw or heard now, she wouldn't be too surprised. It wasn't until the cardboard box in front of her was opened that she decided to take back what she had said. Inside the cardboard box was a custom-made fake body of the same scale as her. She said it was fake, but it actually didn't look fake at all. The craftsmanship of this fake body could be said to be the work of the gods. The facial expression and complexion seemed real, and even the eyelashes and pores were perfectly restored. Boss Luo's craftsmanship is really getting better and better. Audra marveled at Fatty Luo's methods. Who is Boss Luo? He's the owner of a magic weapons shop called Fatty Luo Metal. I can take junior sister Lotus Sun there later. Audra said, this fake body is the project that Boss Luo has been working on recently. That was right, Fatty Luo had actually been working on a fake body project. At the very beginning, he had been working on this project because of Jinka. As a fanatical fan of Jinka, Fatty Luo had started with the limbs and produced Jinka's fake mechanical arms, which could be used as a pillow at night. Supposedly, they could prevent a stiff neck as well as relax muscles and improve blood circulation. At first glance, this research project sounded a little wretched and perverted. But who would have thought that Fatty Luo's research would ultimately come in handy? As Fatty Luo's emulation skills continued to improve, replicating an entire human body was no problem for him. This craftsmanship is indeed very high. Within the Buddha's golden lotus, Lotus Sun gazed at this simulated body, feeling like she was looking into a mirror. According to Boss Luo, this body was made according to the proportions of junior sister Lotus Sun's body. All the details are exactly the same, so it's no different from a real body, including the hair on every part of the body. All hair. Hearing this, Lotus Sun got goosebumps. Don't misunderstand, junior sister Lotus Sunday Boss Luo's body simulation technology can already be produced with AI intelligence. There are no manual steps during the entire process, and the privacy of the customers is fully protected. Audra said, of course, that might not have been the case 2 months ago. I remember that 2 months ago, Boss Luo was the one who inserted the hairs into the body to restore the details of the hair. So sick. Hearing this, the Sun family's grandfather and grandson couldn't help but twitch their mouths. But to be honest, this method is indeed very powerful. It's almost as if it's real, Death Heavenly Tao said. It wasn't easy to receive Heavenly Tao's praise. Although Fatty Luo's body simulation technology had been developed through countless, perverted behaviors, it was still recognized by most people present because it was unparalleled in the world. Even Death Heavenly Tao had praised it, so one could imagine how outstanding this fake body was. The fake body wearing the hospital gown was swapped with the real body. The first task was already a success. Seeing the remote control in Audra's hand, Death Heavenly Tao asked curiously, "What's this remote control? Don't all girls like to be beautiful?" Boss Luo specially made a few extra sets of clothes for junior sister Lotus Sun's fake body. In addition to the hospital gown, Fatty Luo had designed 2 other sets of clothes for the disguise. Clothes? What kind of clothes? Lotus Sun also asked. The blue and white striped hospital gown replicated on junior sister Lotus Sun's fake body is made of a special material, which can in fact be quickly reassembled according to demand. You can easily disguise yourself with a press of the remote control. Audra laughed. But Boss Luo gave this design knowledge to me, so I don't actually need it. Then can I see what kind of clothes it is? Lotus Sun was very curious. Of course, but does junior sister Lotus Sun really want to see it? Audra asked. Lotus Sun suddenly had a bad feeling. Don't tell me the clothes are all very revealing, not really. There's one that's revealing and one that's not. Which one does junior sister Lotus Sun want to see? Then it's not revealing. Lotus Sun was a little embarrassed in front of so many people. Are you sure? Audra asked with a smile. Yes, sure, okay. Audra nodded. The more revealing clothes were number 2, which Fatty Luo had designed for her as a swimsuit. As for the not revealing clothes, it was number 3. Audra quickly switched to number 3. Buzz. As the girl's body glowed with a multicolored glass light, the hospital gown began to change rapidly. When she saw number 3, the girl's face directly turned red, burning all the way to her ears. She understood everything. But why? Number 3 was a wedding gown. She felt like she had been tricked by Audiobook. Immortal Jin Yuan and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch were waiting in True Venerate Hall in Battle Sect to welcome Lotus Sun's real body. While they were waiting, they had a brief conversation. I never thought these ancient gold men would be so rampant, said Immortal Jin Yuan. They're just grasshoppers at the end of autumn, they won't be jumping around for long. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch smiled. But there's still something I don't understand. Immortal Jin Yuan was puzzled. Since these ancient gold men need the power of a son of the void to completely break the seal on the unspeakable, why are they only targeting Miss Sun? I remember that there should be 2 sons of the void. Chin in hand, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch thought carefully. Miss Lotus Sun already exudes the aura of the void, which is the same as those hollow spirits. The ancient gold men are relatively easy to distinguish. As for the second son of the void, although young Master Ling has already locked onto him, he's still hiding very well. Is he hiding on purpose? I think so. There might be an unspeakable conspiracy behind this. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch said, but I think we'll know the answer very soon. Those 3 people from the domain of the gods have already gone to catch him. Chapter 1305. Elsewhere, Gu Xuanji, Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi had been sent on a mission to capture the second son of the void. Because they couldn't confirm his identity at the moment, the 3 of them decided to catch all the suspects for observation. Once these suspects started to give off the scent of a creature of the void, then the identity of the son of the void would be confirmed. According to Book of Sage Immortal, in the end, the suspects focused on Jiang Shaoqi and Yi Jiang. One was Old Man Sun's personal secretary. The other was Blade Master Yi Jianchuan's adopted son. Because they didn't know which of the 2 sons of the void was, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's suggestion was, catch them both. Furthermore, they had to be the kind that wouldn't give themselves away. Because no matter which one of them disappeared, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Lord Ma has already connected with them. The fake bodies of Yi Jiang and Jiang Shaoqi are ready. After we kidnap them, we'll switch to the fake bodies. Gu Xuanji told Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi about the plan of action. I've already seen those fake bodies, but they're both alive. What's the use of just switching bodies? Wang Zhen asked. These 2 fake bodies are more advanced and can be manipulated. There are professional actors pulling the strings behind the scenes, and it's said that they were carefully selected from the battle sect. Gu Xuanji said, do you know those virtual live streamers online who use 2D AI to change their faces? Oh, you mean that? Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi were enlightened. They had seen similar live streams before, and even live accidents. This was a technology that could completely replace a real person with a 2D virtual live streamer. You could find someone to draw up the persona you wanted. Then, the real person just needed to perform in the background. During the live stream, all the voices and expressions would be captured by the AI, and then fed back to the virtual live streamer. But when this technology first came out, there were frequent flip-flops. For example, you were watching a cute 2D virtual girl dance in the live stream room with relish. In the end, the live stream room suddenly froze. The real live streamer hiding behind the virtual software would instantly be exposed. It could be an auntie over 50 years old. He could also be a fat otaku with a face full of pimples and a big belly. I never thought that Fatty Luo would actually incorporate this kind of technology into his body simulation technology. Too bad he's a freak. After listening to Gu Xuanji's introduction, Wang Zhen had a look of amazement on his face. Gu Xuanji nodded in agreement. Boss Luo is indeed a rare talent. Unfortunately, he's a freak. It's a pity that he's a freak. Has this sentence become a suffix to describe Boss Luo? Hearing the 2 men's conversation, Lu Qingyi took the initiative to defend Fatty Luo. Boss Luo is such a good person. He is quick-witted and quick-witted. How can you say that about him? Too bad he's a pervert. Wang Zhen and Gu Xuanji, the first hostage was Yi Jiang. It was relatively easy to tie Yi Jiang up. Ever since the Nine Dragons mountain climb competition, Yi Jiang was still in a state of isolation and had yet to recover. Now, he was still lying in the hospital. Every day, he had nothing to do but receive regular counseling from the psychiatrist. Thus, it was very easy for the battle master who was in charge of the connection to act. This sort of expressionless acting wasn't challenging at all. Gu Xuanji and the other two cut the Gordian knot and quickly tied up Yi Jiang. Then, they cooperated with Lord Ma to place the fake Yi Jiang on the hospital bed. There's one more, Gu Xuanji said. And the last one was the most troublesome one. Unlike Yi Jiang, Jiang Shaoqi was a person with the ability to move, and he was very vigilant. He was also followed by a man in black the entire time. Thus, they had to find a time when Jiang Shaoqi would be alone. Gu Xuanji, Wang Zhen, and Lu Qingyi disguised themselves as employees of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. They were dressed in staff uniforms and waited for an entire afternoon before they finally found an opportunity for Jiang Shaoqi to go to the toilet alone. The time has come. I'll leave this to you, Gu Xuanji said to Wang Zhen. Why me? I'm thinking about you, Gu Xuanji said earnestly. Gu Xuanji said earnestly, when all's said and done, we're all working for Ling Jinren. You have to show off more to win his favor, understand? Ling Jinren nodded. That's right. Lu Qingyi smiled mischievously. Senior Gu is the commander of this operation, and that place is the men's washroom. You can't possibly want a girl like me to go. This Senior Gu made Gu Xuanji's mood extremely complicated. When Lu Qingyi said this, Wang Zhen rolled his eyes. What's with the fact that you usually break down the door when I go to the washroom? Now you think you're a girl, but in the end, Wang Zhen grit his teeth. Fine, I'll go. Of the three people from the domain of the gods, Wang Zhen felt that his status was indeed the lowest. Wang Zhen had even named his online ID this way, Humble Wang Zhen, Survival on Earth. These short words fully expressed Wang Zhen's current living situation. He felt that what Gu Xuanji said actually made sense. Rather than painstakingly cultivating for 1,000 years, it was better to cling to Wang Ling's thigh. If he tried harder to curry favor with Ling Jinren, his status might really fall further and further. There were several bodyguards in black standing guard outside the men's washroom. Wang Zhen couldn't directly break in through the front door, so he could only find a covert position to flash over the wall. Wang Zhen knew a lot of Heavenly Dao spells, but he had learned many of them quickly through cultivation. Thus, most of them were second-rate. For example, he wasn't very stable with this Great Flash spell. Wang Zhen just hoped that he wouldn't appear in some strange place. Inside the washroom, Jiang Shaoqi was facing the urinal. He had just unzipped his pants, but before he could take it out, a hand reached out from the urinal and grabbed his hand. Brother, calm down. Don't pee. Wang Zhen sighed. Sure enough, he had still flashed into some strange place. That was right, he had flashed into the urinal. What was worse was that Jiang Shaoqi was about to take out his water faucet and aim it at Wang Zhen. Wang Zhen made a prompt decision and stretched out his hand to stop Jiang Shaoqi. Holy shit! Jiang Shaoqi was frightened on the spot, and his entire body went limp with fear. A person suddenly popping out of the urinal was no different from Sadako crawling out of the TV. But he didn't have time to cry out. Paw! Wang Zhen knocked Jiang Shaoqi out with a karate chop. Although it wasn't a good start, it was more daunting than dangerous. Wang Zhen wiped at the sweat on his forehead. He was about to wait for Lord Ma to teleport. In the end, he suddenly saw a silver vortex start to gather in front of him. What's this? Wang Zhen was puzzled. This Lord Ma's teleportation had always been a golden beam of light. When had he changed the teleportation special effect? Wang Zhen was astonished. A fat man fell heavily onto the toilet tiles with a plop. The fat man was foaming at the mouth. It looked like he was getting carsick because the speed of the teleportation was too fast. Bro. Bewildered, Wang Zhen walked over. Then, he saw the signature chubby face of the newcomer. Damn, isn't that Zhao Qingxian from the Zhao family? Wang Zhen recognized the newcomer at a glance. What was this guy doing on Earth instead of staying in the domain of the gods? A few minutes later, the bodyguards at the door heard strange noises coming from the washroom, and hurriedly broke in. Wang Zhen had already completed his task, and walked out as if nothing had happened. The swap was complete. The one in the washroom now was a fake Jiang Shaoqie. The real one had already been knocked out and had been teleported back to the battle sect by Lord Ma. What's going on? You're making so much noise when you're kidnapping someone. Are you okay? Lu Qingyi was startled by the scene in front of her, and her face was full of bewilderment as she didn't know what on earth had happened in the washroom just now. I saw Zhao Qingxian. Wang Zhen said in a low voice. Zhao Qingxian. The one from the Zhao family. Lu Qingyi was shocked. What's he doing on Earth? She recalled the terrifying scene of being chased and intercepted by this young master from the Zhao family in the domain of the gods. Looking at Lu Qingyi's panicked expression, Wang Zhen asked with a smile, "Are they here for you?" Why me? I can't like him. Even if I do. I can't like him. Like who? Lu Qingyi was silent for a moment, then blushed and hurriedly changed the subject. Then, how is he now? I beat him up. Don't worry about it. You actually beat him up. Lu Qingyi instantly smiled. It turned out that the noises in the washroom just now had been the sound of Wang Zhen beating someone up. Who else should I beat if not him? Wang Zhen chuckled. Even if it wasn't for Lu Qingyi, it was for himself. Of the people from the domain of the gods, his status was already the lowest to begin with. If there was also Zhao Qingxian, who liked to flatter Ling Zhenren in all kinds of ways, wouldn't his status be reduced by one? Humph. Bam, carrot. He absolutely couldn't let that happen. Chapter 1306. Splash. A basin of ice-cold water was poured over Zhao Qingxian. He woke up from his coma and felt an incomparable pain in his skull. The cold water seeped into his wound, and Zhao Qingxian grimaced in pain and cried out in alarm. When Zhao Qingxian came to his senses, he realized that he was handcuffed. In front of him were two police officers responsible for interrogating him. Something didn't seem right. He remembered that he had lost consciousness in the transmission array in the domain of the gods. This might have been motion sickness, caused by traveling too fast. But the question was, how had he gotten all these injuries? Since why had he appeared in this police station? Zhao Qingxian couldn't figure it out at all. This is Earth, right? Zhao Qingxian stared at the two police officers in front of him and asked solemnly. The police officers were blank, and one of them stared at Zhao Qingxian speechlessly. Although you were beaten up like an alien, it's no use pretending to be one here, understand? We're now in diplomatic relations with Divine Dao Star, and we have files on all aliens. So tell us the truth about your crime, or you'll suffer. The truth. The corners of Zhao Qingxian's mouth twitched, and he wanted to cry but had no tears. He had just arrived on Earth. How had he become a suspect? You've made a big mistake. The police officer looked at Zhao Qingxian very solemnly. Do you know, beating yourself up like an alien and then hiding in a toilet to scare people is very shameful. Very, very shameful. What the hell? Zhao Qingxian was bewildered. You scared Jiang Shaoqi, the Secretary General of Huaguo Water Curtain Group, so much so that he's now unconscious. The situation is more serious than you think. Zhao Qingxian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Officer. I understand that. But do you think anyone would be so bored as to beat themselves up like a pig's head to scare other people? That's hard to say. Maybe there really is such a bored person. The police officer chuckled. We've already examined the scene, and there's no trace of a third person, which is why we came to this conclusion. Also, we have reason to suspect your sexual orientation. Zhao Qingxian. The police officer, according to the statements provided by the security personnel at the scene, when they found you, your hand was already in Secretary Zhang's crotch. Zhao Qingxian. Therefore, we carried out a basic reconstruction of the scene based on the facts. The police officer twirled the pen in his hand and explained his deduction. First, you've been coveting Secretary Jiang for a long time, so you beat yourself up and hid in the toilet, trying to scare Secretary Jiang. After Secretary Jiang fainted, you planned to do something to him. Secondly, Secretary Jiang was shocked and accidentally collided with your head, causing both of you to fall to the ground at the same time. Then, the security guards rushed into the toilet and happened to see your perverted hand. After that, the police officer was filled with righteous indignation and slammed the table heavily. He thought of the room and incident that happened not long ago, and the anger on his face became even more obvious. These people of the heaven-slaying blade who couldn't control their desires should be severely punished by the heavenly Tao. At the same time, he felt sorry for Secretary Jiang, who had yet to recover from the shock. When going out, no matter if it was a girl or a boy, they had to protect themselves. Why did the Secretary General go crazy like that? Battle Sex True Venerated Great Hole. After the second kidnapped Jiang Shaoqi had been sent here by Lord Ma, the entire swap plan had already been carried out smoothly. When Jiang Shaoqi had been sent here, he had been unconscious, and had been sent here in a very strange position with his butt sticking up in the air. They're very efficient. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch smiled slightly, took a step forward, and flipped Jiang Shaoqi over. Then, he noticed that the zipper on Jiang Shaoqi's pants was wide open, and an unknown liquid was seeping out. This scene forced Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch to quickly withdraw his hand and not touch Jiang Shaoqi again. As Wang Ling's real clone, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch also had his own distinct personality traits. For example, mesophobia. Take the Crispy Noodle Snacks incident for example. Wang Ling didn't mind grabbing the noodles in the bag with his bare hands and getting his fingers covered in seasoning powder. But Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch was different. He had to wear gloves or use a spell to guide the noodles into his mouth. If he directly grabbed it with his hands, he wouldn't be able to accept it at all. Let me do it. Seeing this, Immortal Zhen Yuan stepped forward to help Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch out of his predicament. Seeing that Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch was gathering the moisture in the air to wash his hands, he couldn't help laughing. Senior Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's mesophobia is a little strong, isn't it? It's not a question of whether it's exaggerated or not. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch shook his head. I feel like I'm not clean after touching him. At the same time, in Battle Sect's underground seclusion cellar, seclusion room number 328. Odd Jua, Death Heavenly Tao and Lotus Sun were under Battle Sect's protection here. Battle Sect's underground seclusion cellar was designed for all disciples who needed to enter seclusion, and there were 3,000 secret rooms in total. Later, Jiang Shaoqi and Yi Jiang would also be sent here for protection in an independent secret room. These two people were like ticking time bombs. One of them could awaken and become a son of the void at any time, so the task of monitoring them was indeed a long and arduous one. But with Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Immortal Zhen Yuan, two great generals of Battle Sect, standing guard here, even if they ran into any trouble, they would be able to easily solve it. In secret room number 328, Lotus Sun was slightly startled when she saw the feedback image in the true venerated hall. Senior Audjua, I never thought that Brother Jiang might be a son of the void, Audjua, surprised. No. Lotus Sun shook her head. Actually, I'm more surprised that there's someone in the hall who looks so much like student Wang Ling. You mean Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch? Is this senior called Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch? The girl was blank. I knew it wasn't student Wang Ling. Student Wang Ling would never talk so much in one chapter. Audjua laughed. That's Shifu's real clone, which was split from his main body. You can understand it as Shifu's son, which is little Wang Ling. So of course they look alike. Little Wang Ling, the girl seemed to think of something, and her face turned red. Then what on earth is a real clone? Lotus Sun asked. Ordinary clones usually dissipate immediately after receiving a heavy blow. They don't have spiritual intelligence, and act according to the orders of the main body. But real clones are different. Not only do they have the ability to fight for a long time, they also have self-awareness, Audjua answered briefly. Thank you, Senior, I think I understand. Lotus Sun nodded. She looked at Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch on the screen, a little absent-minded. This was a very strange feeling. Chapter 1307. In the forsaken land of the gods, after countless haggling. Now, only the patriarchs of the Wu, Li, and Xing families had not left. 300 lives worth of cultivation. Wu family head wanted to cry. He did not know if it was because the pillar spirits did not like him. His resurrection price had been raised to 300 lives. Wu family head was on the verge of breaking down. The price of 300 lives was no different from choosing to reincarnate. However, Wu family head did not dare to ask or say anything. With the pillar spirit's temper, he would be punished for another 30 years if he asked. I think I should just die. The Wu family head gave up on resisting. He sat down on the ground and was filled with regret. If he had known this would happen, he would have accepted the punishment of 100 lives. Otherwise, he would not have ended up like this. I think we can still save him. Li family head was sweating. His punishment was not much better than Wu family head's. The more he was punished, the more he was punished. He had already accumulated to 200 lives. Xing family head was even more miserable. He was the mastermind behind the fight and was sentenced to 500 lives. In other words, the three of them combined. They had to pay the cultivation of 1,000 lives to leave the forsaken land of the gods. In short, whether they could leave or not, the Xing family head would have the word miserable written on his forehead. There must be another way. Li family head gritted his teeth. He was still unwilling to give up. He prayed devoutly, hoping that someone would descend from the heavens to save them. The three family heads knew very well that if they chose to reincarnate, with the Wu, Li, and Xing families losing their Tao gods, they would quickly collapse in a very short period of time. It seems that the three family heads are troubled. An ethereal voice came from the forsaken land of the gods. It was impossible to tell where the voice came from. It seemed to come from far away yet close at the same time. Soon, the owner of the voice appeared. They only saw a faint silhouette that was definitely not human. The three family heads were shocked. They could not believe that they could see other living beings in the forsaken land of the gods. Moreover, they were sure that this creature was definitely not a dead soul or something like that. It was fundamentally different from them. This mystical creature was shrouded in a thick gray fog and exuded a divine aura. Its entire body exuded a sense of mystery. Although he didn't know the origin of the creature in the gray fog, he didn't know what it was. Just based on his intuition, the Li family head felt that perhaps they could be saved. May I ask if you can save me? The Lee family's family head revealed a pleading look. Saving you is easy. The creature in the gray fog laughed. I can revive you without consuming any of your cultivation. As soon as he finished speaking, the pillar spirit in the forsaken land of the gods could not help but speak. Shut up. You shouldn't be here. The forsaken pillar of God trembled slightly, as if it was extremely angry at the appearance of the gray fog creature. Wang Long. The entire forsaken land of the gods began to riot. The originally calm space began to tremble violently. Countless black lotuses condensed with powerful psionic energy bloomed from the cracked ground. These black lotuses were astonishingly powerful and exuded incredible divine power. The Wu, Li, and Xing family heads were surrounded by these black lotuses. At the same time, countless vines emerged from the cracks in the ground and wrapped around their feet. In the eyes of the three of them, these black lotuses were no different from landmines, and the might contained within a single lotus was sufficient to annihilate their souls. However, at this moment, the mysterious creature in the gray fog spoke again. It was in the forsaken land of the gods, but it did not care about the pillar spirit at all. I advise you to stop. You know that exploding these black lotuses will not benefit anyone, the creature in the gray fog said. This was not a tone of discussion, but an unquestionable command. For a long time, the pillar spirit did not speak. It was obviously afraid of the creature in the gray fog, but it also knew that this was the forsaken land of the gods. This was not the first time the creature in the gray fog had challenged its authority as a pillar spirit. Therefore, this time, the pillar spirit did not intend to continue tolerating it. Then let's die together. The pillar spirit's voice was cold. It decided to fight the creature in the gray fog head-on. It controlled the black lotuses on the ground, and the black lotuses immediately erupted with blazing light. No! At this moment, the souls of the three family heads trembled. They did not doubt that these black lotuses would explode in the next second and completely destroy their souls. However, what they did not expect was that the power of the creature in the gray fog had far exceeded their expectations. This was a battle that exceeded their imagination. The three family heads could not help but wonder if there was another realm between Tao divinity and Tao ancestor. Whether it was the power of the pillar spirit or the creature in the gray fog, they were far beyond their imagination. Finally can't stand it anymore. You want to explode the black lotuses? How can I let you have your way? The creature in the gray fog let out a light laugh. It seemed to have expected such an outcome. The next moment, the mysterious gray fog that lingered around the creature in the gray fog suddenly spread, covering the entire forsaken land of the gods. The gray fog was like the claws of a tautai, devouring the black lotuses and the accompanying black vines on the ground. In an instant, the terrifying black lotuses produced by the pillar spirit's rage did not even have time to explode before they instantly disappeared. You're just something created by the Tao ancestor. You can't possibly be my match. The next moment, the overwhelming gray fog in the forsaken land of the gods condensed again. The outline of the creature in the gray fog also appeared beside the forsaken pillar of the gods. He stretched out his claws and pressed them on the pillar. It was a caress on the surface, but it was actually a threat. You rely on your authority to do whatever you want, but in the end, you will be punished. The pillar spirit was helpless. It did not expect to meet such a rascal and annoying fellow. He had overstepped his authority and repeatedly interfered with the matters of the forsaken land of the gods. Life is too boring. I have to find something interesting, right? The creature in the gray fog released its claws and laughed again. I'm just joking with you. I don't really want to kill you. There aren't many enchanted toys left behind by the Tao ancestor. I have to keep you guys alive for it to be interesting. What are you trying to do? The pillar spirit still did not understand why the creature in the gray fog was willing to save the three clan masters. I'm not trying to do anything. The gray fog creature spread its claws and looked at the heads of the three great families. I just think their greed is very interesting. How about it, can you give me some face? The divine pillar spirit gritted its teeth and said. It wanted to say, you're courting death. However, the words were already at the tip of his tongue, and he was too lazy to continue speaking. Because it knew that there was no way it could communicate with the creature in the gray fog. Take the three of them and scram. This was the last thing the pillar spirit said to the creature in the gray fog. You're just an enchanted toy, but you have quite the temper. The creature in the gray fog chuckled. The next moment. Chapter 1308. As the last three patriarchs left, the forsaken land of the gods fell into silence once again. The appearance of the gray mist creature made the divine pillar feel helpless. It was powerless to resist the gray fog creature, let alone refute its words. Enchanted toys, the divine pillar spirit was helpless. For a long time, the gray fog creatures had interfered with the divine punishment of the forsaken land of the gods more than once or twice. The pillar spirit had been enduring and restraining its temper. However, this time, its patience had reached its limit. Although it had allowed the gray fog creature to take the three family heads away, it was only a stalling tactic. Even if I have to pay the price this time, I will definitely punish you. The pillar spirit's voice echoed in the forsaken land of the gods. If there was one person in this world who could teach the gray fog creature a lesson, in that case, the forsaken pillar of God could only think of one person. However, summoning this person's soul to the forsaken land of the gods was extremely dangerous. If it was not careful, it would suffer a backlash. However, in order to be able to punish the creature in the gray fog. At the same time, it was also to ensure that Tao ancestor Wang's cultivation path could be passed down for a longer period of time. The spirit of the divine pillar knew that the creature in the gray mist had reached a point where it had to be eliminated. Therefore, even if this matter was risky, it was going to defy the heavens. In the next moment, the divine pillar spirit gathered its spirit and began to use the entire forsaken land of the gods to perform the summoning ritual. A total of 6,000 lifetimes worth of cultivation. This was all the cultivation that the forsaken pillar of God had collected through the divine punishment so far. Now, the forsaken pillar of the gods had spared no effort in sacrificing it, just to obtain enough power to summon a person's divine soul. Wang Ling opened his eyes. He discovered that he had been summoned to a dark and secluded space. What came into view was a huge altar. The forsaken land of the gods. Wang Ling immediately figured out what kind of place he was in. Previously, when monk Jin Deng was broadcasting live in the true sovereign hall of the battle sect, he had also learned of the existence of such a place through the peeping screen. It was just that Wang Ling didn't expect, he had actually been summoned here. He was clearly in the Wang family's small villa a moment ago. In the blink of an eye, Wang Ling felt his soul tremble slightly, and then it was summoned here. He must have paid a huge price. Wang Ling was very clear. There was no one in this world who had the ability to summon him, unless they paid an immeasurable price. Wang Ling stared at the altar in front of him. He knew very well who had done this. The God Pillar Spirit had the ability to punish all divine souls in the cultivation world. This ability could even surpass the heavenly Tao. Because of this, other than the godly Pillar Spirit, no one else could do it. Why are you looking for me? At that moment, Wang Ling stepped forward. The king's eye saw the true appearance of the Pillar Spirit. It was a bronze-colored cat with strange runes engraved all over its body. Hiding at the very top of the god's forsaken pillar, the Pillar Spirit licked its cat paw lightly. I don't want to trouble Ling Jinren unless I have no other choice. You know me. I have long heard of it, the Pillar Spirit of the Forsaken Pillar of God replied. Most importantly, it could clearly know the true cause of death of every person who was sent to the forsaken land of the gods. It was precisely because it had witnessed the scene of Wang Ling crushing the 6 great Tao gods at the same time that the forsaken pillar of gods was even more certain of Wang Ling's power. Although the pillar spirit had known of Wang Ling's existence before this, it hadn't had a true understanding of his true strength. The creature in the gray fog. Wang Ling asked telepathically at that moment. He had used the king's eye's power to reverse everything that had just happened in the forsaken land of the gods. At the same time, he clearly saw the non-human creature that had appeared in the forsaken land of the gods wrapped in a thick layer of gray fog. This creature in the gray fog was insufferably arrogant. It completely disregarded the authority of the godly pillar spirit. It had taken away the heads of the Wu, Li, and Xing families in an extremely arrogant manner, and had verbally humiliated the pillar spirit. At that moment, Wang Ling saw everything through the king's eye's power. I'm sure Jinren has also seen how arrogant this guy in the gray fog is. The bronze cat looked at Wang Ling and said earnestly, if we don't stop him and teach him a lesson, the cultivation world will fall into chaos. Ling Jinren, don't worry, I won't ask you to do it for free. Wang Ling was curious as to what the bronze cat could offer in exchange. Now, Wang Ling knew that his horizons had already been broadened. Ordinary crispy noodle snacks could no longer satisfy him. Unless it was a limited edition, special flavored crispy noodle snack that he had never eaten before, and he couldn't just give him one packet. At least one box. I know, Ling Jinren is currently rescuing a girl. The bronze cat pillar spirit of the forsaken land of the gods said, that girl is indeed a child of the void, and the entire void is looking forward to her return. Once that girl's soul falls into the void's hands, everything will be too late. In exchange for teaching the creature in the gray fog a lesson, the bronze cat said at that moment, originally, only Tao gods are qualified to keep a backup copy of my forsaken land of the gods. If Ling Jinren agrees to my request, I can make an exception and put that girl's name on my list. Hearing this, Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. He already understood what the bronze cat meant. The forsaken land of the gods had the right to control a spirit that surpassed the authority of heavenly Tao. If the forsaken land of the gods stepped forward and detained Lotus Sun's spirit in advance when it was threatened, it would undoubtedly be another layer of insurance. In Wang Ling's view, this condition was reasonable. After all, the girl was only at the foundation establishment stage. But now, she had the privilege of a Tao god. But Wang Ling still didn't directly agree. This was a negotiation. Especially when the other party came to negotiate on their own initiative, he had the initiative. As long as he wasn't in a hurry to agree, the other party would definitely continue to increase the bargaining chips. This was a trick Wang Ling had learned from Father Wang. When Lai Mengmeng came to press him for more manuscripts, Father Wang often used this trick to swindle a lot of recommendation spots. Everything went as Wang Ling had expected. After a few minutes of silence, the bronze cat increased the bargaining chip as expected. How about this, Jinren? I can open up another privilege. When that Miss Lotus Sun leaves the forsaken land of the gods, she won't need to consume any of her cultivation, and will be directly released. Wang Ling was silent. Apart from this, I'll also be responsible for her safety. As long as she's in the forsaken land of the gods, I'll take action against anyone who trespasses here, even if it's a void creature. Wang Ling was silent. And a box of limited edition crispy noodle snacks, deal. Wang Ling agreed. Hearing this, the bronze cat couldn't help breathing a long sigh of relief. As an existence that could control a cultivator's spirit like God, the bronze cat never thought that there would actually be a day when it would ask a youngster from Earth for help. The bronze cat thought it was God. But it wasn't until it knew Wang Ling that it clearly realized its mistake. It realized that it didn't have the qualifications to be God. And Wang Ling might be an existence even more powerful than God. God might have called Jobs away because he wanted to play with his phone. God might have called Kobe away because he wanted to play basketball. But there was no way God would call Wang Ling away because he wanted to get beaten up. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.